One. And we're live. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 20 of the FilmBrony podcast. I'm of course Nick Canino, the guy in charge of the whole podcast on this channel. And of course, as always, I'm not alone. I got some of my friends with me who are here to join me on this podcast. So, would you like to introduce yourselves?
My name is Christian Frates, and I am an aspiring filmmaker, screenwriter, and voice actor, and editor, and YouTuber. And I've been collecting a lot of films on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, and VHS, and I'm glad to be a part of this group.
Glad to have you on, buddy.
Well, after a disappointing summer movie season, it seems like September has kind of improved in terms of movies.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been a disappointing summer, and we'll talk about that later when we get to it. But right now we got a lot to cover today on today's episode of the FilmBrony podcast for two reasons. One, tomorrow's my birthday. I'll be 24 years old, and number two, later on we're going to be reviewing a classic. We're going to celebrate my birthday tomorrow, and to commemorate the 20th anniversary of this release of this film. We're going to be doing a classic review of one of the greatest animated films of all time later on in the show, Shrek.
Yeah.
So you guys should stay tuned for that, because you don't want to miss our thoughts on the film, because oh boy, it's gonna be a lot of fun to talk about why we all consider it to be one of the greatest animated films of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's get started with today's podcast.
All right, as always, I'm going to start with the crap ton of Blu-rays I picked up over the last month. Anyways, first up is All the President's Men in this digibook.
One of the greatest films of all time.
Blue Velvet.
That's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Brooklyn.
One of the best romance films I've ever seen.
Con Air, why don't you put the bunny back in the box?
Nice.
Escape from New York.
A classic.
The inspiration for House Delgado.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
8th Grade, just got this today.
Nice.
The Exorcist.
One of the greatest horror films of all time.
Falling Down.
Very underrated.
Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Kong Skull Island.
Nice.
Hereditary.
One of the best horror films I've seen from the last decade.
The complete James Dean collection, East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant.
Nice.
Next I have Justice League, the real one.
Yeah.
Kick-Ass.
Nice.
The Master.
One of the best films from 2012. I absolutely love that movie, and I cannot wait to see Paul Thomas Anderson's next film later this year.
Next is probably the most I've paid for a used Blu-ray, but from what I've heard, it's worth it. Monster.
Great movie.
Moulin Rouge and Romeo and Juliet. Philadelphia.
A great movie. Tom Hanks was phenomenal in that film.
Precious.
One of the best films from 2009. A great movie.
Ratatouille.
A classic, a Pixar classic.
Both Sin City movies.
Nice.
Still Alice.
I love that movie.
Julianne Moore did a great job.
She did.
Tokyo Godfathers.
That is one of my all-time favorite animated films.
Next, I picked up this Universal Action Collection. It contains American Made, Atomic Blonde, Battleship, Born Identity, Doom, Green Zone, Kick-Ass 2, Man with the Iron Fist, Smoking Ages, and Wanted.
Nice.
And last but not least, The Witch.
I love that movie. That's one of the best horror films from the last decade.
And here are my Blu-ray showcases. Both of them are 1999 classics. American Beauty.
Great film.
I love that. Great
I'm
movie.
not supposed to talk about this.
To answer before we move on, to answer Network 98's question, it said he asked let me
He asked, "What do you think of Wall-E?" It's a classic.
It is a classic. I love that movie.
While it's not one of my favorite Pixar films, I still think it's a damn good movie.
Nice.
It's
Anyways,
an example of show don't tell.
Right.
Alright, on to our crap ton of movie reviews. First up is the Aretha Franklin biopic, Respect.
Which I also saw with Soren.
This truly is a perfect...
Respect Aretha Franklin. You like my Sailor reference?
Yeah, that was fantastic.
This truly is a perfect tribute to the Queen of Soul. Jennifer Hudson is perfect, and the rest of the cast is solid too. The direction is also superb with its stunning production design and gripping cinematography. And of course the music is great, which is expected for a biopic like this. This is one of the best movies of the year and a pretty early contender for the Oscars next year. So go out and see this movie when you can. 10 out of 10.
Alright, my thoughts on the film. I really like this movie. Well, I don't think it's one of the this is the most underrated film I've seen this entire year. Jennifer Hudson is superb. She delivers such a superb performance as Aretha Franklin. Not once did I see Jennifer Hudson. All I saw was her character, and it's just the way she performed Aretha Franklin. That was such a phenomenal performance, and it felt so natural and raw. It is just all around such a powerful and wonderful and beautiful performance from her. The music is fantastic. I absolutely love the soundtrack to this movie. Superb cinematography, great production values and costume design, great writing, fantastic directing, and the story had me emotionally invested throughout. While I did feel that the film was a bit too long, and the film did suffer through a couple pacing issues in the middle, the film was nevertheless the most underrated film I've seen this entire year so far, and one of the better films to come out this year. 9 out of 10 or an A minus. And hello, Nicholas Lee. Welcome to the podcast. Hope you enjoy.
Alright, as for my next movie review, it's So August 20th has got to be one of the biggest movie weekends I've ever experienced, because I saw not one, not two, but 6 movies from that weekend. And this is the first one of them, Annette. Not since Perfect Blue has a movie left me both weirded out and mesmerized at the same time, and I personally loved every minute of it. Adam Driver delivers one of his best performances as a performer who's gone off the edge, and the rest of the cast is fantastic, and especially Marion Cotillard. The directing is superb and the cinematography astonishing. The music is some of the best of the year, and I hope a handful of their songs get award consideration. So if you love the films La La Land and Perfect Blue and wish there was a movie that combined them, Amazon Prime has got the movie for you. So stop watching this video, get on your Amazon account, and check out one of the best movies of the year, 10 out of 10.
I also saw Annette, and some of my quick thoughts on the film. I didn't love this movie as much as you did, Soren. I mean, there were some problems I did have with like some of the excuse me. There were some problems I did have with like some of the elements and like the script that could have been handled better, and the film also did suffer through a couple pacing issues here and there, and the film was a bit too long for me as well, but I did really like this movie overall. The story did have me emotionally invested. The directing was fantastic. Also there was a weird scene. I'm not going to spoil what happens. That really felt a bit out of place, and I did wish they could have cut that out of the film. Let's just say it takes place like around like 10, either 20 or 30 minutes in. I don't know, but the acting was phenomenal, especially from like Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard, and I love the musical numbers. The cinematography was fantastic. It's very well edited, and I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I don't think it's one of the best movies I've seen this year, but it is a very good film. 8 out of 10 or a B+.
As for the next movie to come out from that day, it doesn't get better, does it?
Oh my god, no.
Neil Blomkamp's Demonic. When I read the concept, I was like, okay, it seems like The Exorcist meets The Cell. I'm down with that. But after seeing this mediocrity, I was like, well, I guess not. I guess it's Exorcist meets The Cell for 30 entire minutes before it turns into a generic demonic horror movie. I will say the acting is on point, but the production values look like a straight-to-DVD movie, and the effects range from decent to something out of an old Silent Hill game. So yeah, I don't recommend this one, even if you're a Blomkamp fan. Just watch any of his previous movies again. 4 out of 10.
I didn't see it, but I didn't see this movie, but it's just like what you mentioned. It's just like yeah, funny of him to call Denis Villeneuve a fucking asshole when he was just expressing, when Denis all of a sudden was just expressing his opinion on Marvel movies, when all of a sudden he would come out with a movie that looked so cheap. Well, hypocrite.
Guardians Volume 1 wasn't copy and paste cookie cutter. It was fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. But I'm talking about Neil Blomkamp.
Yep. And speaking of disappointments, you may have noticed my profile pick of the month here.
Oh boy.
Netflix's Loud House movie.
Another film I did not see, and honestly, I think I made the right decision to dodge the bullet.
Now, here's the thing. When the Loud House first premiered on Nickelodeon 5 years ago, it was seen as this groundbreaking cartoon, and the channel hasn't gotten this much popularity in years. As for me personally, I liked it. I think it's a tad overhyped, but overall, I liked it for what it was. The first 3 seasons were a bit flawed, but they were funny, heartfelt, and a good little distraction. But then season 4 came, and I started to see some cracks in the wall. Then I saw a few episodes of season 5, and it was a bit worse than that. So when they announced that they would make a cinematic outing onto Netflix, I was skeptical. The trailers did not impress me at all, but I was also optimistic. Maybe this could be the thing to see my slowly degrading through the entire franchise. And after watching this movie, is it really as bad as I feared? Is it a little worse than season 5? Well, to quote the Penguin, no, it's a lot worse. Guys, this is the ultimate proof that Nick has completely given up on the franchise. The point where the Loud House has officially jumped the shark. Hell, I'm pretty sure Fast and Furious 9 didn't jump the shark higher than this movie. First of all, the story is a complete ripoff of the episode Out on Limo. Lincoln is sick and tired of living in his sister's shadow, so when he sees the opportunity to live in royalty, he becomes so selfish and self-conscious that he has to learn that it's not all about him and that his family is just as important as he is. Hell, the concept of Lincoln being shunned by everyone else in the royal works makes zero sense to me. Last I saw from the show, Lincoln is pretty well regarded and his sisters seem to support him. Unless you count No Such Luck, which I don't. And I just thought of another piece of media this movie shamelessly ripped off. Hotel Transylvania 3. A group of friends and family, including our protagonist, needs a break from the troubles at home, so they travel to a distant vacation where the protagonist doubts whether to go back or stay in paradise. But there's this secret villain behind the whole thing that wants to destroy our heroes and they have to stop them. Yeah, as if ripping off themselves wasn't enough, they also had to plagiarize one of the most successful animated franchises in recent memory. Rate us through this role, Nick. Rate us through this role, Nick. No, not you, Nick. The channel.
I know. Right.
By the way, why are all 10 of these sisters in that movie? I'm not saying it because they were openly obnoxious or anything. They were pretty tolerable. But I'm just saying that outside of Lucy and Lily, if you cut Lincoln's sister out, the story would be no different. And it's not like the animation helps at all. Yeah, you know the type of animation that looks great in an animated television cartoon, but crap in a cinematic experience. And I don't care if you throw in 360 shots in cheap CGI that would look groundbreaking in 1991. It's still the exact same animation as the show. At least Invader Sim entered the floor piss new to update its visual style when they made the 2019 movie.
I'd rather watch the Powerpuff Girls movie and the first SpongeBob movie over the Loud House movie.
And I would rather watch My Little Pony the movie, the 2017 version, over the Loud House movie again, honestly.
Oh, and you know how the Loud House is supposed to be this somewhat grounded family sitcom with the occasional technical achievement from Lisa? Well, one of my biggest problems about seasons 4 and 5 is that they suddenly throw in these supernatural elements like this power-wielding cat and literal ghosts that pop out once in a while. In this movie, it's like they took that one nitpick of mine and turned it up to 11. I mean, spirits of the hero's ancestors, prophecies, magic spells, a freaking dragon? Well,
Are you fucking kidding me?
I guess they were trying to copy Gravity Falls.
Well, there's nothing to compare to one of the worst aspects of this movie, the musicals. Now, before I get a million comments, yes, I am aware that the show had songs in it, but here's the thing. The songs in the cartoon are mostly diegetic, and the only time where it becomes non-diegetic is in that one special episode in Season 3 where Luna just imagines her sisters singing about their respective abilities. Like I said, mostly grounded. On the other hand, this movie thinks it's Disney and completely interrupts the story with a tacky musical number that is completely unnecessary to the story. Oh, and Bobby's in this movie for no reason. The reason why I waited until now to say this is because his scenes don't even add up to a minute, and again, should have been cut from the story.
Great. One of those like characters that is just there just for the sake of it.
I'm just gonna say this right here and right now, and trust me, I thought about it. This movie is the absolute worst episode of the entire show. And before I get a million more comments, I know this shouldn't count as an actual episode, but hey, if I can deem Jonah of VeggieTales movie the greatest episode of VeggieTales, surely I can deem this piece of crap the worst episode of the cartoon. And could you even blame me? The story is obnoxious and predictable, plagiarized and makes no sense. The humor is completely idiotic and doesn't once get a laugh. Okay, that pretty far-fetched. Half the characters are there just for fan service and completely pointless. And with all these fantasy elements thrown in, it's almost recognizable from the rest of the franchise. Now, is this the worst movie of all time? No. It's not even the worst movie of the year. I'd easily see this over other crap like Boss Baby 2, Music, or Woman in the Window. And I will admit, the opening wasn't too bad and could be seen as its own music video on YouTube. The voice cast is decent, and every 10 to 20 minutes there's a brief chuckle out of me because of a joke that's in the spirit of the show. But this movie is the epitome of what's wrong with the show nowadays, as well as what's wrong with Nickelodeon, trying to milk this franchise drier than they've already milked the SpongeBob franchise. Don't watch this movie, even if you're the most hardcore Loud House fanatic in the world. Because trust me, you'll hate yourself watching this disgrace of a cinematic experience. 3 out of 10.
I have no interest in watching that film. And to answer Eddie's question, I don't hate The Loud House, but I consider it to be one of the most overrated cartoons I've ever seen in my life. This is one of those shows where it tries to be a slice of life cartoon, when it also fails to do that in the later episodes. And that's another reason why I'm not a fan of the show. I don't hate it, but it's just, I just don't think it's that great.
Like I said, I do like the show myself, but one of the greatest cartoons of all time? Fuck no.
No,
I like Lucky Star better than The Loud House because it's slice of life done right.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Oh, and let me just let me just say this right now. I thought of doing this clip. I thought of putting in this clip, and this is my response to Nickelodeon. Hold on.
You go fuck yourself!
Seriously. Canceling shows like Making Fiends and Teenage Robot, and continuing to run Loud House and SpongeBob off the ground.
Don't forget Fairly Odd Parents. They milked it.
They milked that too. And it's not just Nickelodeon's fault. It's also Butch Hartman's fault. That fucking scumbag.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go over his actions here. Just watch. There's a bunch of videos covering why Butch Hartman has gone downhill.
Right. And if I were to give a suggestion to people like on why he's a scumbag, watch that creepy ratings video on like the top 5 reasons why Butch Hartman is hated. He goes into depth on a lot of scummy things that Butch Hartman has done. Oh, and oh boy, Eddie had this question to ask. What's your opinion on Fred the Show? Fuck that show.
I haven't seen the show myself.
Me neither.
Trust me, you're not missing much. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show.
But the good news is, Nickelodeon made a better kids movie that day. And surprisingly, it's the Paw Patrol movie.
Which I also saw, surprisingly.
From the moment of its announcement, I was drained this movie as yet another cheap cash grab kids movie. But I didn't think this was that bad. Now don't get me wrong, it's not exactly great and nowhere near the best of the year, but I enjoyed it for what it was. The animation's colorful enough, there are some legit throwing action pieces, and I surprisingly find myself sympathizing for the characters. So, this is kinda weird. In a summer filled with disappointing to all-out crappy movies, this was actually better than I was expecting. How sad is that the G-rated animated film aimed at little toddlers is superior to most of the movies made for adults this summer. Have I gone mad? Is there something wrong with the film industry? Oh, and my recommendation 6 out of 10. But still, have I gone mad?
I don't think so. You said pretty much what I exactly said with the film. I mean, when I saw the trailer, when I saw some of the ads for this film, I was like, I don't know about this. But then I heard about the surprisingly positive reception it was getting, and I saw the movie myself, and I surprisingly like this movie. I know, for a movie that's normally aimed at little tights, this is actually one of those movies that really did a good job. The animation is spectacular. The animation is very good. The voice acting was decent. It makes you sympathize with the main characters, which, as Soren pointed out. And another thing with sympathizing the characters, this movie also, for a movie that's also aimed at little tights, this movie did a really good job at like tackling the subject of like PTSD, especially on Chase. I never expected a film like, something like Paw Patrol to even cover that, but it did, and that's something I gotta applaud like the people who made this movie for, because it was at least it served its purpose, and it made you realize on why Chase is like has been like this for like years until like he learns to until something happens in the later on in the film. I don't want to get into what happens, but for those who saw the film, you probably get the point. But yeah, I overall like this movie. I mean, it's not great. I did wish the script could have been a lot better. They could have tightened the pacing a bit, and some of the editing choices, I will admit, were a bit off, and I really didn't like the villain, honestly. I get he's supposed to be like this like parody of some like real life presidents that we're not going to discuss here, but he just felt too over the top for my taste, and that's why I get he was supposed to be over the top since it's an animated film, but there's a right place and a wrong place to do it. This was the wrong place in my opinion. Now, I have nothing against the voice actor that voiced the villain. He did a fine job. It's just I just wish the script could have been a lot better with the way the villain was written. But overall, a decent movie, and good for the kids, and surprisingly good for the adults too. 7 out of 10, or a B. Oh yeah, and really quick, somebody told me to highlight this comment. I gotta get this out of the way. Gwen Baker said this. Butch said people who die of cancer weren't right with God. What?
How does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, that's messed up.
Hey, by the way, Butch Harmon, how's your streaming service coming along? You know, the one that you had us fund $100,000 for? Oh, and fuck you for blaming Taylor Strong for Timmy Turner's original voice actor's death.
Mary Kay Bergman.
Yeah, rest in peace to her.
I'm literally speechless right now, and not in a good way.
Oh, and hello, Owen. Long time no see.
Hello, Owen. Welcome to the podcast. Let's just get on to the next review before I all of a sudden have a rage fit.
Yep. Our next movie review is Martin Campbell's latest, The Protege. This was a pretty fun action romp. While the story is nothing special and it relies a lot on action cliches, The acting is great, it's well directed, the action is fun, and even the soundtrack is pretty cool. So, while this isn't exactly a game changer, it's still a decent action film that's worth seeing at least once. 6 out of 10.
As for me, I saw the film myself and I thought it was alright. Um, um, I thought it was alright. It is entertaining. The acting is fine, and there's a lot of good action sequences, and the musical score and cinematography were decent, but it does go for those cliches that we've seen in a lot of films before, and it does nothing new with its story, which is why I thought it was just eh. And the ending was a bit abrupt too, so 5.5 out of 10 or a C plus, I guess.
As for the next movie review,
oh jeez.
yeah, another disappointment. Reminiscence. I think this year might be the year of great premises ruined by misguided execution, and this movie is the epitome of it. The idea of a bleak future where people can use a machine to relive past memories has an iota of potential. And while this movie boasts good effects, decent performances, and really good music and cinematography, the screenplay is severely lacking, relying more on constant exposition and talking rather than letting the visuals tell the story, leading to an extremely boring and sometimes confusing experience, and the third act makes you go, what? So, as a guy who's a sucker for ambitious sci-fi, this was such a disappointment, and I barely recommend this one. 5 out of 10.
This was one of the year's biggest disappointments. Yeah, the acting was decent, especially from Hugh Jackman, then Dwight Newton. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
Thondaway.
Thondaway. Thank you. And Rebecca Ferguson. And the visuals are spectacular, as well as the musical score and cinematography. But the movie was a mess. And no joke, this movie actually made me fall asleep. I rarely see movies that make me like fall asleep, but Reminiscence is one of those movies, and it was only like an hour and like 5 minutes in before this movie even put me to sleep, and I had to finish up the last 40 minutes of the film the last like 42 minutes of the film by then. That's how bored the Reminiscence made me feel. And to answer your question, Eddie, minus the Suicide Squad and In the Heights, yeah, they are.
Yeah, they really are. They're just thankful that they made the HBO Max deal, otherwise they would have probably gone bankrupt by now. With all the box office bombs.
Yeah, it's just... I'm really hoping that the Many Saints of Newark, as well as Dune, like Denis Villeneuve's Dune, helps Warner Brothers this year, because because like Paramount Pictures from 2017 and 2019, they've been having one of the worst years of that in their career. No, Westworld was also a movie. Went from 1973.
It was also it was also a show in the mid 2010s. I haven't seen it, but I've heard nothing but praises.
Yeah, that's what I also meant. It is a show, but before that, it was also a 1973 sci-fi film that carried the same name. But yeah, this movie was a mess. It's not worth anybody's time, and well, good thing I split my good thing I got my facts straight then, for someone who never knew about this. But yeah, anyway, to sum it up, this is one of the year's biggest disappointments. It's boring, it's forgettable, and it was just all around an inconsistent and convoluted mess. I'm going lower than you, Soren. I really hate to do this, but I know there are some people that do like this movie, and that's totally all right. That's totally all right, but for me, I can't see myself watching Reminiscence again. One of the year's biggest disappointments, 3 out of 10 or a D+. I'm sorry, I just did not like this movie at all.
As for our next movie review, thankfully things do get better.
Thankfully.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Which I also saw.
Me too.
Let's all review it then.
Yep. After the good but somewhat underwhelming Black Widow, Marvel has struck gold yet again. The performances are terrific, especially the main lead and the actor who plays the Mandarin. The action sequences are probably the MCU's best since Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and the effects, costumes, and production design are top-notch. The family drama is the exact opposite of Black Widow, where here, it's completely tense and at just the right amount. Although it's way funnier than I expected, especially towards the second half. I don't want to spoil it here, but trust me, it gets hilarious.
Yeah, it does. I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is the best solo Marvel film since Thor Ragnarok, and one I'm obviously recommending. Is it worth going out and seeing at a theater? Well, it depends on how safe you feel outside. But if not, see it when it comes to Disney Plus next month. 10 out of 10.
Just alright, so to sum up my my thoughts on the film, my only little gripe I have with the film is that some of the jokes they throw in like the first some of the jokes they threw in the first half of the film, like I'm kind of with Austin on this on some of the on some of the jokes that come up as being there just for the sake of it. Especially when there's involving this one scene that takes place at a bus. Now, don't get me wrong. The bus scene was fantastic, but there was one thing they added in that scene with the bus. I don't want to get into what happens, but it felt like it was there just for the sake of comedy, and it really was like unnecessary. I get why it was there, so that it would be a build up to later for something I don't want to get into. But I felt they really could have cut that out of the film, and just leave the bus scene as a whole into this one spectacular scene. So, but overall, despite my one problem with some of the jokes falling flat, I absolutely loved this movie. The story was fantastic. 95% of the jokes land. It's very well directed. It's very well written. The acting was terrific, and the action sequences alone are amazing and fun to watch, especially in the third act. My God, that was just beautiful. And oh, and I gotta say this too. Everybody's been echoing this, but it's true. Awkwafina was hilarious and the best thing in the film. You know what? It's funny, like this year she was in Raya and the Last Dragon, which so far is my favorite anime film of the year, and she was the best thing as Sisu the dragon, and now here in Shang-Chi, she's the best thing in the film too. And to answer Owen's question, can we all just say it's good to see Ben Kingsley back in a great movie again?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, he really needed a good movie like this. Yeah,
and
overall.
Speaking of Ben Kingsley, I know I've spoken about this in an earlier episode, but I want to say it again. I did not have a problem with Ben Kingsley's twist in Iron Man 3. I thought it was pretty hilarious and really shows Ben Kingsley's potential as an actor. I mean, he won an Oscar for playing Gandhi, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, and not to mention, he was in one of my all-time favorite movies, Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention, he was in a British crime drama that's like one of the most overlooked films from the 2000s. Here, give me a second.
All right.
Oops. Look at this. That was him. And it's a great movie. Sexy Beast.
I am a sexy beast.
No, you're just gonna have to make this opportunity. Yes. But yeah, I love this movie. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is one of my favorite movies I've seen this year so far. I absolutely loved it. 9.5 out of 10 or an A.
Yeah, and here are my thoughts on Shang-Chi. It was pretty good, and I liked the acting, the directing, the writing, the post-credit scenes. And,
That was awesome.
I was really psyched when I heard that Abomination would be in it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he only went instead of talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he looks drastically different. And he looks drastically different from his Incredible Hulk counterpart.
Yeah, he looks more true to the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying? Christian?
Yeah, I was just really excited about that movie when I heard that Abomination was in there.
Yes. So, what would you give this out of 10?
Well, I give it a 10 out of 10 for being a great Marvel film.
All right.
Nice. Alright, so we're going to move on to the next film.
And that is Paul Schrader's The Card Counter.
I
And this
loved this movie.
And it's safe to say, Paul Schrader has done it again.
He has.
Oscar Isaac delivers a terrific performance as a gambler forced to confront his violent past, and the directing is on point with the editing, soundtrack, and cinematography, especially these long chase shots, and even a couple instances of panoramic frames to give a haunting sense of discomfort. If you can take the extreme slow burn, I'd highly recommend this one as one of the better films of this year. 10 out of 10.
I really love this movie. I think it's one of the best films of the year. However, I do understand why not a lot of people wouldn't enjoy this movie. I mean, the slow burn pace does take a lot of getting used to, which is why I could see a lot of people being turned off by it. But to me, it needed to be that to fit the tone and atmosphere it was trying to go for. Since this is involving like Oscar Isaac's character, who's trying to confront his past, and it works so well here. I love the story. I love Paul Schrader's directing. The writing was fantastic. The acting was terrific. Oscar Isaac was fantastic in this movie, as is Ty Sheridan. Tiffany Haddish. I know some people had some problems with Tiffany Haddish in this movie. To me, I thought she was fantastic. This was unlike anything I've ever seen Tiffany Haddish play, and I really, really loved her in this movie. And Willem Dafoe, although he's not in the movie that much, he absolutely kills it. I really, really loved him in this movie too. And the soundtrack is fantastic. The cinematography was also fantastic. It's very well edited, and without spoiling what happens, the last 5 minutes of the film had me on the edge of my seat, and it floored me to no end because of how powerful it is. Yeah, and the way it ended too was just absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love this movie. I think it's one of the best movies I've seen in 2021. If you can handle the slow burn pace in the film, then you're in for one of the best experiences I've seen in 2021. But like I said, I understand why not a lot of people would love this movie, and that's totally all right. That's totally all right. To me, though, this is a 10 out of 10 or an A+.
Alright, as for my final movie review, oh, fuck.
Oh, boy.
We're going there again, aren't we? After we fell. So, this is the latest installment of the 50 Shades of Grey cinematic universe, based on a Harry Styles fanfic you can read for free on Wattpad, and features our two young leads as they encounter wedges in their relationship and fix them just in time just to have awkward sex every 15 minutes. One of my biggest problems with both After and After We Collided is that they had little to no plot, and I just wanted to get as steamy as possible, in that they're about as steamy as leftover veggie slush on a counter overnight. This movie has the opposite problem. It somehow has no plot and too much plot at the same time. There are just so many subplots sprinkled throughout this movie. The main girl wanting a job that's too far away from her boyfriend, him going up in arms with her dating someone else in the last movie, issues with the main girl's father. Like, pick a main girl and stick with it, will ya? Once again...
It's like Blade Trinity all over again.
Yeah. Once again, the acting is mostly atrocious. I don't know who trained the two leads, especially with those British accents, Australian, whatever. But clearly the direction needs work if they want to get far in their film careers. Once again, the soundtrack and sex scenes try so hard to be sexy, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Because it's like the director was homesick when it came time to shoot the sexual content, and the studio got Tommy Wiseau to direct it just to stay on schedule. It's a pure definition of softcore porn. Although I will say this, there are some mere...
wait, what you said about Tommy Wiseau? That was hilarious. Also, before you say anything, Nicholas Lee had this better title for After We Fell.
After we go to hell.
After we go to hell.
Well, I personally nicknamed them the Afterbirth series. This being Afterbirth 3.
Yeah, really.
Like I was saying,
let me try this one last time on highlighting this comment, because my God, that was just glorious.
Anyways, like I was like I was
Oh my God! Jose also said this. After we go to fuck me. What kind of show are we running here all of a sudden?
That's brilliant. That's brilliant right there.
Oh my god! Oh my god, that was great.
Okay. Let me just compose
Woo!
myself.
Woo! Okay, so you were saying.
Although I will say this about After We Fell, there are some mere moments in this movie that aren't really as horrible as the rest of the movie. The parts where the two leads confront the girl's father, I thought were confront the girl's alcoholic father, I thought were handled fairly well, and the actor who plays the father is actually pretty good, and it's the diamond in this rough cast. But does it make it worth sitting through an hour and a half of Hallmark-esque drama and awkward sex lies? Hell no. So while After We Fell is a smidge better than the last two, that's like saying that was the best kick in the balls I've had all week. It's still a horribly directed.
It's still bad.
Yeah, it's still a horribly directed and acted fanfic disguised as a theatrical film. Again, I'm not one to brag, but the fanfictions I write for my DeviantArt accounts are looking like freaking Pulitzer winners compared to these pieces of garbage.
Yeah, really. And your fanfics are actually more fun to read than any other shitty fanfics.
So yeah, avoid Afterbirth 3 at all costs. 3 out of 10.
Oh my god. I gotta show this comment again. After we kill Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ, what what kind of show are we
in this?
after we what kind of show are we running here all of a sudden?
I know, and you're not missing much on skipping the sequels. They're just fucking atrocious.
Yeah, I mean, after suffering through the nightmares of the 50 Shades trilogy, there was no way I was gonna sit through another one of these again.
So anyways, that's it for our current movie reviews, and now we go to a classic. Nick?
Yep.
Why don't you start?
Okay. After DreamWorks was formed in 1994, okay, so after DreamWorks was formed in 1994, they had some really good movies in their belts, such as like they had some really good animated movies in their belts, such as like Ants and The Prince of Egypt, as well as I thought The Road to El Dorado was pretty good too.
My Power Richard Epcar directed the Polish dub.
Yep, yeah, that... Huh.
But
And, they're all, some of, DreamWorks' best. In fact, Prince of Egypt is, almost tied with The Lion King as my favorite animated movie of all time.
nice. All right. But none are this master. Oh, and Eddie, if you're wondering on Sinbad, I thought it was all right.
It was, yeah.
I thought it was
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. But none are this master. But in 2001, one animated film changed the way for not only a company like DreamWorks Animation, but with the entire animation industry, to the point where many have considered to be one of the greatest animated films of all time. And as you could tell, me, Soren, and Christian are going to be talking about this wonderful masterpiece to celebrate its 20th anniversary, Shrek.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an old-time classic, that's for sure.
Yes. So let me just give a quick summary to those that have never seen it. Which, first of all, what are you doing if you have never seen this movie? stop watching this podcast and go watch Shrek right away. But to summarize the plot of the first Shrek movie, once upon a time in a faraway swamp, there lived an ogre named Shrek, voiced by Mike Myers, whose precious solitude is suddenly shattered by an invasion of annoying fairy tale characters. They were all banished from their kingdom by the evil Lord Farquaad, Farquaad, voiced by John Lithgow. Determined to save their home, not to mention his, Shrek cuts a deal with Farquaad and sets out to rescue Princess Fiona, voiced by Cameron Diaz, to be Farquaad's bride. Rescuing the princess may be small compared to her deep, dark secret. So what makes this movie so special, and why I think it's one of the greatest animated films?
Before you move on, highlight Owen's comment right now. Memes aside, Shrek is an amazing movie.
Yes.
Highlight it right now.
Yeah, really. I mean, like, Shrek would have been one of the most respected film franchises of all time if it just ended after Shrek 2. But then came Shrek the Third, which was one of the worst animated films I've ever seen. And then, but to be fair, it did leave off on a solid note with Shrek Forever After, which I thought was a really good film. And yes, Owen, I didn't know about this. Originally, Chris Farley was supposed to voice Shrek, but when he passed away in
97.
In 1997, the voice was lended to like Mike Myers, and I gotta say, Mike Myers was phenomenal in this movie. Everything. If you want to see the best performance by like Mike Myers, other than like Wayne's World, this is the film. This is the film. He pulls off a brilliant Scottish accent as the voice of Shrek. What are you doing in my swamp?
Originally, Mike Myers recorded a majority of his lines in a different accent, but then he decided last minute to go with the Scottish accent, and it cost DreamWorks like $2 million in reanimating, and let me tell you, it was worth every penny of it.
Yeah, really.
And Shrek sounds more like a fairy tale creature with that Scottish accent.
Yeah. All the other voice actors do a fantastic job too. Eddie Murphy is hilarious as the voice of Donkey.
What, Shrek?
Not to mention Cameron Diaz.
Waffles.
I'm making waffles. Get out of my swamp! I know if it was a bit cringy, I do apologize, but we just love to have fun for a little bit. But anyway,
yeah.
The other voice acting was terrific, especially Cameron Diaz did a fantastic job voicing Fiona. John Lithgow was fantastic as well as the voice of Lord Farquaad.
That reminds me, did you know that Mike Myers also voiced one of the 3 blind mice?
I did not know that.
I actually did not know that.
Yeah, he said, "Here's what I do. That will do just fine."
Oh yeah. Thank you, Owen. The mama bear scene. Oh my god.
What are you doing in that cage? We should take over the world like Lord Farquaad.
Yeah, in case you guys don't know, in the beginning of the film, where they're running out of the fairy tale characters, you see this bear family in the cages. The mother, the father, and this little cub. But once
too small.
Yeah, and once they are dumped into the swamp, you see that the mother isn't there. But once we get to the middle of it, when we see Lord Farquaad watching Fiona in the mirror, guess what you see on the floor? The mother, as
Oh,
in
yeah.
Ron.
But
Yeah.
Hector and Boskov, imagine if Hector was on Mama Bear and was like,
Get up, you lazy brat!
Yeah, the jokes, my god, the jokes were really clever in this movie. Like the story alone is a parody of the Disney fairy tales, like putting like some Disney fairy tales. Well, to avoid the copyright claims by like Disney, but still. But anyway, put in the fairy tale characters. Put in the fairy tale characters. Put a different spin on them, and boom, you get this movie. That's what I loved about this movie. The fact that it was a parody of the Disney princesses and like the parody of the fairy tales. Fairy tales, and like how it's also like a parody of like happy endings and fairy tales as well.
yeah, what I really liked about it, ever since I first saw it in theaters, was the very beginning. You see a typical storybook, and all of a sudden, Shrek tears the page and says, like, that's never gonna happen. What
Like, that's...
Then you hear All-Star, which shows that it's gonna be very different in a good way.
Yeah, really.
And to let you guys know, this Shrek wasn't actually the first movie to use All-Star. It was actually written for a '99 movie called Mystery Men. Then you can hear it in the background in Inspector Gadget. Then at the end at the Rat Race.
Yeah, so this wasn't the first time they did that, but let me get this. Let me get this opening scene for a second, because after All Star, it also sets up for one of the best openings I've ever seen in a motion picture. Like, what are like animated or live action? Damn ads! I'll tell you. All right. I'm gonna cut the roar thing, but This opening is just hilarious. This opening is just hilarious. Hold on.
This is the part where you run away.
Oh look, it's the audience reaction while watching Boss Baby 2.
My 5-year-old
Like,
nephew James says that Shrek is much better than Boss Baby, and he's got a point. Even 5-year-olds have a common sense.
Yeah, really. And it's just, I could also talk about why we consider this to be one of the best animated films of all time. But if you would like a more definite information on why Shrek is considered one of the greatest animated films of all time, watch Shea Frilla's review on why he considers like Shrek a great movie, the first Shrek. I'll leave a link in the description at the end of the show. So.
And I'd also recommend the Blockbuster Busters Shrek videos, where he talks about the first Shrek movie and why it's such a landmark.
Yeah, and did you know that Richard Horvitz of Invaders Zim fame and Jim Cummings of Winnie the Pooh fame did additional voices? Jim Cummings was the leader of a guard saying, "Right. Well, that's good for 10 shillings, if you can prove it."
Yeah,
Nice.
that's a pretty neat fact.
That's
You didn't know that?
interesting. I actually did not know that.
Well, I know a lot of obscure facts.
Yeah.
You got some great facts there. You got some great facts to share. About some other things we didn't know about, Christian, and that's another reason why we love having you on the podcast.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. But yeah, Shrek is without a doubt one of the greatest animated films of all time, and one of the greatest animated films of all time. It set the standards for what animated films would for what some of the other animated films will become in the near future, especially with its sequel, which was also fantastic.
Even though it had a different set of writers.
Right. But how they did it was incredible. Let me find a sound
And the first
clip.
Shrek movie had a great selection of pop music that worked out well, like I Don't Give a Damn About My Bad Reputation worked well for Shrek beating the Nights Up.
That was great.
I'm here till Thursday. Try to veal.
Okay, so to finish up our feelings towards the first Shrek movie, it's one of the greatest animated films that Soren, me, and Christian have ever seen, and without a doubt, damn it. Shut up, Ad. Without a doubt, Shrek is getting. Thank you, Owen. Thank you. Shrek is how you use a film soundtrack. Suicide Squad, take notes. Suicide Squad 2016, take notes. Thank you.
Yeah, David Ayer's version would have had just orchestrational soundtrack, not poppy music that shamelessly copies from what James Gunn wanted, even though James Gunn's version of his soundtrack is better.
Yeah.
Hashtag release the Ayer cut.
Yeah, really. But without a doubt, it's getting. This is getting. I scored this for whenever I give. I scored this. This is the score I give for movies that become one of my all-time favorites. It's an 11 out of 10.
Yeah, that's true, and if you don't mind, I recommend checking the DVD section because they're fun interactive DVD menus that resulted in memes. Like, what are you doing in my swamp? That animation was only in that DVD set and not in the film.
Yeah.
I remember that. And if you guys are wondering of what I would give the sequels, Shrek 2 is an 8 out of 10, really good movie. Shrek the Third, a 5, pretty disappointing. Shrek Forever After is a 7, really overlooked, and the pretty neat conclusion to the Shrek saga.
Yeah,
At
my
least
advice for Shrek marathons is by watching Shrek 1, Shrek 2, and Forever After. Nothing else.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, really.
Because I remember advising my Aunt Debbie, since she wants to let her grandchildren watch the Cars franchise, I told her watch the first, skip the second, and watch the third.
Or you could view Cars 2 as like a Made a Spy spin-off. Like, if Disney called Cars 2 like Mater the Spy or something, and called Cars 3 Cars 2, then the real Cars 2 wouldn't get as much hate as it does.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, really. But one more time for those who are still who are coming back. Soren, Christian, and I all consider the first Shrek a masterpiece, and without a doubt, it's an 11 out of 10. Yeah. So those are our thoughts on like the first Shrek movie.
Yeah, Shrek is an important part of my life because it's the very first film I've seen in theaters, and it made me feel good about myself, and we shouldn't judge people by the color of their skin by the content of their character. Because,
Thank you for mentioning that. Its themes of like identity was so well handled here.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that.
It's no wonder it got a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars.
As well as being the first animated film to win the Best Animated Feature Oscar.
And last year, on top of that, it got selected for preservation at the National Film Registry.
And it deserved it.
Yeah.
It deserved it. It is a classic. If you have not seen Shrek, the first Shrek movie, first of all, what are you doing? Get your ass out of that couch or whatever you're sitting on.
Don't
Stop
you mean
watching
get
this
your
podcast.
donkey?
Well, I'm here to save my ass.
Okay, okay, but seriously, get your ass out of that couch or whatever you're sitting on. Stop watching this podcast and watch the first Shrek right away. You are missing out because you are missing out on what makes the first Shrek one of the greatest animated films of all time.
And for the true Shrek experience, don't forget to have some onion rings or onions with some waffles.
Yeah, my waffle.
Ogres are like onions.
And JonTron said in the Grant Kirkhope Game Grumps, Scots are like onions.
Oh man, that's funny. I remember seeing that. I remember laughing my ass off, and then, well, I don't want to pull the obvious joke. So we'll save that for later. But you'll see what I mean when we get to it in a little bit. But
End of story. Bye bye. The review's done.
yeah, the review's done. Shit. Yeah. So why don't we move on to the next topic?
All right. As for our next movie discussion, a couple weeks ago, Nick and I have been talking about how shitty this summer season is, and we were both talking about how my fan fictions on my DeviantArt page are way better than half the movies that came out in theaters. And then I made a comment about how my cartooniverse, this shared universe of cartoon-based fan fictions that take place in a cinematic universe, is somehow way better than half the cinematic universes Hollywood put out the previous few years. And this kind of inspired me to talk about why most cinematic universes fail. So the concept of a shared interlocking universe is nothing new. It dates all the way back in the 1940s with the Universal Monsters franchise.
It's
Actually,
a pretty good revival with Van Helsing, but not so much with Tom Cruise's The Mummy and Dracula Untold.
yeah, really.
But it wasn't until the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that Hollywood studios are like, hey, those movies are pretty popular. Why don't we just copy Marvel?
Yeah, it
So
all
they-
began with
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., here to talk about the Avenger Edition.
history has changed since that line.
And one of my biggest problems on shared universes is that most of the cinematic universes are completely pointless. With a few universes like the DC Extended Universe and the Lego universe, I understand because those universes are pretty vast.
Right.
But for Sony to make try to make a Ghostbusters universe, a Dark Tower universe, a revival of the Monsters universe, which, as Christian pointed out, completely failed twice.
But Van
Not-
Helsing was the better one.
Oh, and thank you, Jose. The Hanna-Barbera Cinematic Universe.
I was just about to mention that.
And you want to know why else these cinematic universes fail? Because these seem less focused on telling a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and just focusing on the universes. Like with the Mummy, that movie was I hear is pretty crappy, but this sequence in the middle where it just completely stops. So
Yeah, and have you heard of The Mummy Demastered?
no.
It's a video
No.
game which is better than the film itself. It takes good use of a license and doesn't bother with pandering.
So like I was saying,
Interesting.
this is scene in the middle where while Tom Cruise and the Mummy were fighting, the Mummy gets captured and put in this secret organization
Oh my god, that
where
scene.
Tom Cruise sees a skull with vampire teeth, the hand of the creature from the Black Lagoon, and it's all being led by Henry Jekyll himself.
I prefer the Mr. Hyde from Van Helsing.
Because he has his bombastic attitude.
And I will admit that even though I really like the MCU and the DCEU, they're not innocent on those as well. Like in Avengers: Age of Ultron, where Thor is in this bath, he has this vision of the six Infinity Stones, and obviously it's tying into the Infinity War saga that would come up in a few years. And in Batman v Superman, even though that one's one of my personal favorite films, the Ultimate Edition, mind you, there I do have one teeny tiny little nitpick. So after Bruce Wayne meets Diana Prince, he sends her this email asking her who she is, and then this email attached to it is these videos of the respective Justice League teams, like the Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman. I mean, I get that you're trying to set up the Justice League, but at least
Bless you.
Thanks.
But at least do it subtly. I mean, say what you will about the nightmare sequences. At least they work because even though they are teasers for like the Flashpoint and Darkseid and stuff, they work because they can be seen as Batman's psyche and him viewing Superman as a threat to Earth.
And Zack Snyder was great friends with Ed Boon, the co-creator of Injustice, and Ed Boon liked that idea.
Huh. So yeah, those are pretty much my two biggest problems on the cinematic universes these days. So what's up with studios trying to launch these cinematic universes without a concrete plan? I mean, take notes from Kevin Feige. At least he has a plan.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Hamada didn't really have a plan, unless if you count the Suicide Squad or Wonder Woman, Shazam.
And that's one of the main reasons why the Snyderverse campaign is going on, because Zack Snyder had a plan for the DCEU, but then Warner Bros. Just shunned him, fired him, and replaced him with Joss Whedon to finish and butcher the Justice League movie. And thus the Justice League sequels, Cyborg, and Ben Affleck's Batman were all canceled.
But at least Matt Reeves is directing his own Batman movie, which is pretty good from what I could tell.
Yeah, it looks really good.
I told my pal Richard Epcar, who's a big Ben Affleck Batman fan, about him returning for The Flash, as well as the Robert Pattinson movie, and he had his doubts on the Robert Pattinson film, but I told him it's from the director of the Planet of the Apes movies. Not to mention that Richard Epcar voiced Buck in Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
And the thing about Robert Pattinson is, even though it was the Twilight films that made him both famous and infamous, he has done some really good performances, like in Good Time and The Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse, and and at the same thing could be said with this. And another thing too. Funny thing you mentioned Robert Pattinson because really quick before we continue with this discussion is that Kristen Stewart was infamous for those Twilight films that she was in, but then after those films ended, she started getting better in a lot of films that she would be in. Like for example, Clouds of Sils Maria, and
Personal Shopper.
Yes, thank you, Personal Shopper. She was fantastic in those films, and I'm really excited for the new Spencer movie coming out later this year. When I saw Kristen Stewart playing Princess Diana, I thought, yes, that's the type of role Kristen Stewart was born to play, and I cannot wait to see it.
She was also good in Zathura and Speak.
Yes, and she was very good in Adventureland too. Thank you, Eddie, for mentioning that.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray I just picked up, Still Alice. She was good in that movie too.
Yes!
She acted alongside Darkseid in The Runaways.
Yeah.
Because Ray Porter, he was a band roadie in The Runaways.
Yeah. So, anyway, back to this discussion.
I pretty much said my take on this topic.
Yeah, Owen also brought a pretty good point. Let me highlight his comment, and he brings up a pretty good point about cinematic universes and why some of them and why like sometimes they don't work. He said this. The problem with cinematic universes is that the first movie is filled with Easter eggs just to try to set up future films and doesn't care about being a good movie. Example, The Mummy 2017. Yeah, honestly, he brings up a very good point about that.
Like, take Shang-Chi, for example. Sure, it had Wong and the Abomination fighting, but it was mostly in the background.
Right.
They didn't like stop the movie and They didn't like stop the movie just for a 10-minute just to be a completely different movie with them.
At least to help restore faith in the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all we have to say about this particular topic. And we're gonna go right into a top 20 films of 2013.
I only have like 15. But you could do the top 20 and I could do the top 15.
All right. As for my honorable mentions, before I go on, Owen just said another thing. The best cinematic universe movies are the ones that are its own thing and don't set up future movies. Suicide Squad 2021 is a prime example.
Exactly.
And Nicholas Lee also asked, what do you think of Canada Hat 2013? Major guilty pleasure right here. I mean, I own it on Blu-ray.
No, it's not 2013, 2003.
2003. Thank you very much. I misread.
Very huge guilty pleasure of mine. I know the film is a mess, and sometimes they go a bit too far with these like adult jokes, but I don't know. It's just one of those movies that it's just so bad. It's just good to me. It's one of my biggest guilty pleasures of all time.
That's what you get when you have the screenwriters of the film Euro Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, honorable mentions for 2013. I have Hunger Games: Catching Fire, Epic, Blue Sky's best movie. I have The Wolverine, Iron Man 3, Blue Jasmine, The Way Back, Lone Survivor, Short Term 12, 42, Rest in Peace Chadwick, Dallas Buyers Club, and Nebraska.
As for my honorable mentions, I have Star Trek Into Darkness, The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Easily the best of the Hobbit
It's pronounced
trilogy.
Smaug.
Smaug. Thank you. Easily the best of the Hobbit trilogy, in my opinion. Lone Survivor, Saving Mr. Banks, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's impressive directorial debut film, Don John, Philomena, The Way, Way Back, The Conjuring, 42, again, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, Ron Howard's Rush, The World's End, directed by Edgar Wright, Enough Said, the final film by James Gandolfini, rest in peace, by the way, dude. Oh wait, one of the final films, because the very next year he would star in The Drop, which was a great movie. Sorry about that. The Spectacular Now, my favorite A24 film of 2013. Suck It, Spring Breakers.
And your favorite Shailene Woodley film?
Yeah. My favorite A24 film of 2013. Suck It, Spring Breakers.
Seriously.
And finally, All Is Lost, starring Robert Redford.
Anyways, as for my top 20, number 20 is Elysium. Number 19, The Great Gatsby. Number 18, Before Midnight. Number 17, American Hustle. Number 16, Star Trek Into Darkness. Number 15, Inside Llewyn Davis. Number 14, The World's End. Number 13, The Wind Rises. Number 12, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. Number 11, All Is Lost. Number 10, 12 Years a Slave. Number 9, Rust. Number 8, Captain Phillips. Number 7, Wolf of Wall Street. Number 6, Gravity. Number 5, Her. Number 4, Place Beyond the Pines. Number 3, Prisoners. Number 2, one of the most overlooked movies of all time, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And number 1, Man of Steel.
Nice. As for my top 15, number 15, Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners. Number 14, Captain Phillips. Number 13, one of the hardest films I've ever had to watch, but it's also one of the most powerful films I've ever seen too, Fruitvale Station. Directed by Ryan Coogler. Seriously, you guys gotta watch that.
Black Panther.
Right. Yeah, seriously, watch that film. It's like one of the most powerful films I've ever seen for those who haven't seen it. Number 12, Jeff Nichols's Mud, starring Matthew McConaughey, who's in another film which I'll mention in a bit. Number 11, The Place Beyond the Pines. Number 10, Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity. Number 9, David O. Russell's American Hustle. Number 8, Woody Allen's Blue Jasmine. Again, separating art from the artist. Woody Allen's a creep, but Woody Allen is a creep. There's no denying that. But like I said, I like to separate art from the artist most of the time. And I still think his Blue Jasmine movie still holds up to this day for me. Number 7, Dallas Buyers Club. Number 6, I really don't understand why the Oscars didn't like give this film more nominations, because I felt this was definitely one of the best films of 2013. The Coen Brothers' Inside Llewyn Davis. Number 5, Alexander Payne's Nebraska. Number 4, Richard Linklater's Before Midnight. Number 3, Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street. Number 2,
Breakthrough.
Yes, absolutely. Number 2, Spike Jonze's best film since being John Malkovich, Her. And number 1, this decade's Schindler's List, Steve McQueen's 12 Years a Slave.
Alright, as that's it for that ranking. And this is usually where I talk about My Little Pony seasons, but unfortunately I didn't have the time to see season 5, so I'll most likely talk about it in either October and November.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that sometime next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Seriously.
What we will do is talk about this summer movie season. Now,
I just had to do it.
This summer movie season has been severely lacking.
Yeah, it was one of the most disappointing summer movie seasons in a while. I mean, let me give a quick analysis of this, because because I mean, here's one of the reasons why summer 2021 was like one of the worst and like one of the most disappointing and like fucking Nicholas Lee. He said he joked about movie 43 being. Let me show it. He joked about movie 43 being his number one.
Number one for the worst of 2013 for sure.
Yeah, fuck that movie.
No, the real number one is a Medea Family Christmas. No, it's Turbo. But seriously, my number one is Man of Steel. But as you were saying.
Oh, brother. but anyway, here's. Yeah, Owen, it is. It's just I could not believe James Gunn was what directed one of the skits.
Yeah.
At least it got better later on. So there's that.
Yeah, and his Scooby-Doo 2 script is better than that.
Yeah, from what I heard. But anyway, here's why summer 2021 was such a disappointing summer. This summer was filled with like most of the sequels that came out this summer were either disappointingly mediocre to just downright awful, which we'll get to in a little bit when we talk about our second one when Soren and I explain our top 10 worst films of the summer list. And this summer also had good ideas on paper, but wasted potential in execution in film.
Like Space Jam: A New Legacy, for instance.
And it was really bad. And M. Night Shyamalan's Old, so good idea since it was based on thank you Christian for mentioning this. It was based on the graphic novel loosely called Sandcastles, but again, a lot of that was wasted on screen, as well as Reminiscence. Again, good concept, but terrible execution. But yeah, so minus A Quiet Place Part 2, The Suicide Squad, and Candyman, as well as In the Heights, and surprisingly, Free Guy, the mainstream films this summer have been super disappointing. Yeah, that's why the summer movie season has been of this year has been so disappointing.
Yeah, and that reminds me, there was an early draft of Space Jam 2 for when Michael Jordan was aboard, that the villain would have been Berserko, voiced by Mel Brooks.
Yeah, we'll touch on Space Jam: A New Legacy when we get to it, but yeah. So Soren and I, but despite the summer movie season for mainstream films being terrible, minus a couple gems I just mentioned, the independent films this year have been shining. Have been shining movie screens, which I'm not even making this up, by the way. I checked on my top 10 best films of the summer list. 6 out of 10 independent films are in my top 10 best films of the summer list.
My dad and I loved The Green Knight,
which we'll talk about when we get to it. But yeah, these are the films that Soren and I consider as the 10 worst and best movies that he and I saw in the summer of 2021. Now, before we get into the list, let's just say this. These are just our personal opinions on what Soren and I consider the worst of the summer. If you disagree with any of the films that are on the list, that's totally alright. That's totally alright. After all, film is subjective, and there's nothing wrong with suggesting your own opinion. And second, like we did with our top 10 worst and best movies of this year so far, we're gonna go from 10th worst, 10th best, 9th worst, 9th best, and so on.
Yeah, and also, neither Nick and I saw every single movie that came out this summer, because there are just a few movies that we saw the trailer for and we like, nope, skipping that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of them were like on streaming service, which is why I didn't see a lot of it this summer. So I only saw 45 movies this summer, and honestly, I think it was enough for me. I think it was enough for me for the summer movie season. Anyway, before we get to each of our number 10, let's talk about our dishonorable. Soren, do you have any dishonorable or honorable mentions?
Why don't you start this time? I'll be nice.
Okay. As for my dishonorable mentions, now these are just the films that I'm not going to explain that much of, but they're. I'm not going to explain much of them except for the titles. Let me go on my letterbox for a second, cause I'm a professional when it comes to doing this, as Austin would say it's some of his list. Crap.
Aw, crap!
Nothing. They logged me out. So give me a second, guys. Just let me log in to this. Hang in there, baby.
Yeah.
Tenor bass, tenor.
That's the password, Sly.
Tenor soprano. Looks like Uber.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm on here. Let me get to the list. Okay. So, all right. So, these dishonorable mentions I mentioned are not necessarily like horrendous, but they were just disappointing. But they're on here for a reason. First up, The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. Another weak entry in the Conjuring universe. Spirit Untamed. Not as bad as some people say it is, but it was not a good movie. It was not a good animated film at all. Sean Penn's Flag Day, a real disappointment. I love Sean Penn, but this was not one of his bright spots. Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. Just why? And finally, Reminiscence. As I explained before, good idea on paper, wasted potential in execution.
As for my dishonorable mentions, I only have 3. First, I have Reminiscence. Just see Inception and Blade Runner instead. Spirit Untamed, still better than a certain DreamWorks movie.
Which we'll talk about in a little bit.
And the one that almost made it, Jungle Cruise.
Yeah. As for the honorable mentions on the best films. Shut up, phone. As for my honorable mentions, I only have 4 for the best films of the summer list out there in my honorable mentions. Pixar's Luca. Respect, my most underrated film of the year so far. The Night House, one of the best horror films I've seen this year. And finally, the documentary film from the director of Won't You Be My Neighbor, Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain.
As for my honorable mentions, I have Luca, Free Guy, Zola, and Those Who Wish Me Dead.
Alright. So, without further ado... Oh, and Leah, if you're wondering about my rating for movie 43, -1 out of 10. That movie can go fuck a cactus.
I haven't seen it myself, so I can't say.
Alright. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into the top 10 worst and best movies that Soren and I saw this summer. So, let's get it on with number 10. Alright, so starting off with the number 10 spot. This is at a point where this franchise really has like jumped the shark or newt the fridge as you called it. Number 10 number 10 on the list is Fast 9, The Fast Saga, or Fast and Furious 9. This movie was just stupid. This movie was just stupid. Easily the worst of the Fast and Furious movies, in my opinion. Like, this is at a point where the series completely jumped the shark by throwing in characters, but that were originally dead in the first film, that were originally dead in the previous films, and only for it just to be like, nope, they're still alive. Fuck off.
I feel like Michelle Rodriguez did better acting in Halo 2 than in that film.
Yeah, really. The only redeeming things I found with the film were that Tyrese Gibson and Ludacris were the only actors that gave out decent performances and good chemistry. Justin Lin does do a decent job with the way he directs some of the action in it, and the soundtrack is pretty decent, and so is the cinematography. But that's really it. And also another thing too about this movie, I forget, since we're gonna mention the acting. Since the acting is absolutely terrible, when has Vin Diesel's character in the last 8 Fast and Furious movies even mentioned John Cena, even mentioned Jacob, played by John Cena?
Well, you can't really see John Cena.
Right, I know, but still, I know. I know what you meant, but it's just like, when did he even mention it in the last in the last 8 of the films? Because I don't recall anything about that. Not only is Vin Diesel bad, but the rest of the acting is bad too. John Cena was easily the worst thing in the film. If it wasn't for the Suicide Squad, I would have had it on my worst actors of all time list. Yeah, at this point, this franchise really has gone downhill. Oh, and even though I said in my process that the directing was good, the action was terrible. Especially since with how poorly edited it is, that you can't even tell what the hell is going on in some of the scenes. And another reason why this is number 10 on the list. Oh my god. Nicholas Lee said this. Remember Cardi B in F9? Oh my god, she was terrible.
She sounds like Riley Freeman.
Yes, she does. and we all know another reason why this franchise has jumped the shark. Fast and Furious in space.
A lot of people on the internet joked that the Fast and Furious crew would encounter aliens.
Oh, brother.
Or have a crossover with the Jurassic World and the Minions.
Fuck off. I'm sorry, but that's just screaming for that's just screaming on being desperate. Desperate for money.
We've got to have money. Of course.
Dicks.
Mr.
Yeah.
Wahlberger.
Thanks for your money. Dicks.
Mr. Wongburger's one.
Yeah, I know, but still. Yeah, overall, I'm not excited for the last 2 Fast and Furious movies. At this point, it has completely jumped the shark, and it's just beyond idiotic and inconsistent, and that's why it is the number 10 worst on my list.
My number 10 worst is a movie I just mentioned earlier today, Demonic.
Not to be confused with the Scrap Game.
I pretty much said it all before, but I'll just say this. Neil Blomkamp, shame on you for calling out on Denis Villeneuve for just stating his opinion on Marvel movies.
Yeah, really. Fuck you, man. That's really unprofessional of you to even do that. Inexcusable.
And it kind of seems as desperate, seeing that Neil Blomkamp hasn't made a good movie since Elysium.
And that was back in 2013.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much explained it. Number 10, worst, demonic.
My number 10 best. I know a lot of people are surprised this is lower on my best of list, but it is one of the best films I've seen this summer. Kicking off the list at number 10 on my best of list is A Quiet Place Part 2.
You'll see it high on my list.
Yeah, but I really love this movie. This is a fantastic sequel to the first movie, which I also really loved. As I stated in my original review, in my original thoughts on the film, I said that I loved this just as much as the first film. My only problem I did have with the film is that the ending for this I did wish the ending was a bit abrupt. I did wish they could have like used like 5 more minutes of the film, but that's really it. That's really it. The acting was terrific, especially from not only Emily Blunt and Millicent Simmons, as well as Noah Jupe, I think. That's how you pronounce it.
And Jaimin Hounsou.
Right, and Cillian Murphy was fantastic. He was in my opinion the biggest standout of the whole film. And the jump scares worked because there was tension. There was tension behind the scenes. There was tension in the scenes they're going for.
I feel like Krasinski is a fan of Signs.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of feel like that too, especially with the way he directs the movie, which he did a fantastic job directing this movie. The way he directs the movie was just incredible, and you could see the vision he was trying to go for. And with this, the opening sequence was frightening as hell. The story was fantastic. It's very well written, very well edited, very well paced, very well shot, and the musical score was very haunting as well.
That was the second most haunting thing I've seen in my life, with number 1 being Signs, because the build-up with the Brazilian party with the alien worked out well, and I really got frightened.
Yeah, that was frightening as hell. So yeah, overall, A Quiet Place Part 2, I loved it just as much as the first film, and it easily is a good way to kick off the number 10 spot on my best films of the summer list. Well done, John Krasinski.
Yeah, and it's surprising that Michael Bay, of all people, produced the franchise.
Yeah. Well, then again, he produced another film, which I'm going to talk about later, so...
Yeah. As for my number 10 best, Independence Day, The Tomorrow War.
Nice.
It's pretty sad that a movie that's been dumped onto Amazon Prime is a much better summer blockbuster than half the movies that stayed in theaters. Like I said, this might be the ultimate summer blockbuster of this year. A terrific story, great cast, spectacular visual effects and action sequences, and surprisingly a bit of heart. So if you have Amazon Prime, go watch this movie right now and check out one of the most overlooked movies of the year, The Tomorrow War. So that's my number 10.
Alright. My number 9 worst. My number 9 worst. Oh look, another unnecessary sequel that nobody asked for. We got it because the first one made a lot of money, and this one I'll say is a bit better than the first film, but that's not really saying much though. Number 9 is Peter Rabbit 2: The Runaway.
I can't stand James Corden.
Me neither. I will say this though. Unlike the first movie where he was annoying, here he's actually a lot decent here as the voice of Peter Rabbit in this one than in the first film. And some of the voice acting was very well done too. Some of the acting is pretty decent. The visual effects are great, a lot better than in the first film. The cinematography was terrific, and so was the film's musical score, but that's really it. Other than the story falling flat and the script being terrible, a lot of the jokes fall very flat on their faces. Especially since not only did some of them feel like rejected jokes that come off a Family Guy. Yes, really. But my biggest problem with Peter Rabbit 2: The Runaway is that it relied. Okay, now here's the thing. It's okay to rely on self-aware humor in movies, but the self-aware humor they try to pull in the film was way too much, especially since a lot of them relied way too much on like critic bashing jokes just to like get back at the critics who bashed the first film, which to me that's just a big cop out.
And Sony previously did better self-aware humor in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, really. And look, I'm not saying you can't do self-aware humor in films, because you can. Look at Wayne's World, look at Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and as Christian stated, look at Spider-Verse.
And Deadpool.
Exactly. Deadpool. Thank you.
And Spaceballs.
Yes. Those are how you do self-aware humor right. But the self-aware humor in Peter Rabbit 2, where it's just there just for the sake of like doing critic bashing jokes, it falls very flat on its face. I didn't notice it until one reviewer brought it up, and honestly, that makes me hate the jokes a whole lot more here in Peter Rabbit 2. Yeah, overall, Peter Rabbit 2, I will admit, was a bit of an improvement over the first film, but that's not really saying much, though. That's like saying, that was the best shit I've ever took. It was way better than the one I took last week. It's still shit. Yeah. Overall, Peter Rabbit 2, not as bad as the first film, but still not a good movie. Yeah, that's why it gets the number 9 spot on my worst films of the summer list. Number 9.
My number 9 worst is, ironically, Fast and Furious 9. I refuse to call it something stupid like F9 The Fast Saga. It's Fast and Furious 9, okay?
Yeah,
anyways,
really.
It's pretty safe to say that they should have ended this movie with the Furious 7.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they keep trying to jump the shark even higher with each installment. And at this point, it's like they didn't even try anymore. Especially with the sequence where they drive a car into space to take down a satellite. Why were they smoking when they wrote that?
Smoke weed every day.
Yeah, also, another thing too I forgot to mention. There was no fear in some of the action. That was another thing that the action was terrible on. There was no fear in this. I mean, Austin pointed this out in his review of this. Like, in the Fate and Furious, where you see Vin Diesel's car on fire, there was fear in his character. Where was the fear here? Especially when
I said previously, it's like
when I'm not even making this up, by the way. Especially when in this one scene they decided to go Tarzan on the race cars. What? You were saying?
So, like I said previously, it's like physics and power would be a fifth priority outside of making all that money. So yeah, stop this franchise already. My number 9 is ironically Fast and Furious 9.
Number 9 on my list. I know another film that a lot of people are going to be shocked that this is lower on the list, but I still love this movie regardless. The Suicide Squad. I absolutely love this movie, and James Gunn did a fantastic job making this movie. My only problem with the film is that some of the jokes do fall a bit flat. Like I would say like 5% of the jokes, but that's really it. The story was fantastic. It's very well acted. The action sequences were exciting to watch. It's well directed by James Gunn. He did a fantastic job with the way he directs the action sequences in the film. The soundtrack is fantastic. The cinematography was fantastic as well, and it's very well edited too. And overall, it was just a fun experience from start to finish. Oh yeah, and 95% of the jokes work too.
Yeah, and since I'm a big Lobo fan, I feel like the next project for James Gunn on a DC movie would be Lobo.
I would definitely love to see that.
Yeah, and probably have Rob Zombie as Lobo.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
And the music playlist would be nothing but 90s and 2000s rock music.
Nice.
And
I would actually see that.
Like
Me
Inspector
too.
Mortis, Sonny Jim, and you see wanted posters, and there'll be a lot of frags, a lot of violence, and sex, and all that. So
Nice.
Go nuts, James.
Yeah, really. Yeah, overall, it was a lot of fun to watch, and I really love this movie, and that's why The Suicide Squad is number 9 on the list, and a huge improvement over the piece of shit 2016 film.
The studio cut.
Yeah.
As for my number 9 best, I just mentioned it earlier, Respect. You know, after watching that movie, it makes me really excited to see Dreamgirls even more, seeing that Jennifer Hudson won the Oscar for that.
You gotta watch it, man. She's fantastic in that film.
You gotta respect.
So yeah, I mentioned why I think it's underrated and underappreciated. So yeah, my number 9 is Respect.
Okay, so as for the number 8 worst. Oh boy, another unnecessary sequel on the list.
Oh boy.
And number 8 really hurts me the most because number 8, I never saw the first movie when it first came out. My mom did see the first movie on cable. She told me it was not good. After seeing the sequel, I don't ever want to see the first film. Number 8 is Escape Room Tournament of Champions. Oh my god, this movie. Now, admittedly, the acting is decent, and the cinematography is pretty decent, and some of the traps and puzzles they put in the film were pretty clever, but that's about it. The music annoyed the shit out of me. The music annoyed the shit out of me. The story was a mess. It's poorly written, poorly directed, and poorly edited and poorly paced. But the third act of the film was absolutely inexcusable. It destroys anything that this movie stood out as. It just, as a result, completely makes this movie nothing more than just copying like Saw. Yeah. Overall, just watch the first Saw movie over this piece of shit. Which, funny, I'll mention Saw in a little bit. Sorry to those that like the most recent. But yeah, it's number 8 on the list. Escape Room Tournament of Champions was just bad.
My number 8 is Snake Eyes. You know, if Brian De Palma and Nick Cage came together and made a... Oh wait, wrong Snake Eyes. I'm talking about the G.I. Joe movie. But anyways, G.I. Joe Origins. Like I said in the previous episode, this movie tries to be an origin story for Snake Eyes, but it just failed because it just didn't know when to even start. And right when it looks like it was gonna begin the movie, it just stops right there.
Yeah, it was just.
And
And another film I'm going to talk about later is also guilty of this.
yeah, and Hasbro, what are you doing making
Fuck you, Hasbro.
making these crappy movies? I mean, outside of Bumblebee and the upcoming Beast Wars, which I'm looking forward to, what else do you have left? A crappy-looking MLP reboot?
I'm honestly surprised that one of my favorite voice actors, Phil Lamar's, involved in it.
So yeah, my number 8 worst is Snake Eyes.
Okay. Okay. Let me check my number 8 best just in case I forgot. I'm sorry, folks. This might take me a moment. Because I'm. Son of a. Excuse me. Alright, there we go. My number 8 best is the most recent of the summer movies that came out on the list, and it's Candyman. I really love this movie. I love the original film, and this I just love just as much as the original. This is. I'm not going to get into much of this movie since I know there's still some that haven't seen it yet, but let me tell you, it's awesome. My only problem is that the film I felt the film was too short, and I did wish they could have like added like 10 more minutes of the film, but that's really it. The story was fantastic. The script was great. There's real tension. What made me love this new Candyman movie was how much real tension there was in this movie. The acting was phenomenal. The guy that played the guy that played Anthony, who in the original was an infant when all this was happening, and now he's grown up to be an artist. He did a fantastic job playing Anthony. He was the same guy that was from the Trial of Chicago 7. I forgot what his name was. Let me look this up really quick. I don't want to butcher his name, but I'm sorry if I do. Yahya Abdul Mateen II. I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name, but he was
it was Abdul, like
Abdul II. Thank you. He was in the Trial of Chicago 7. He did a fantastic job playing as Anthony, and I don't want to spoil anything that happens in the film. Other than the musical score being terrific, as well as the cinematography being fantastic, and it's very well edited, very well paced, and overall it was just all around. It's so far my favorite horror film of the year so far, but that might change. Might change if there's a couple, if later this year a couple more horror films come out that like scare me more. So we'll have to see what happens. So. But anywho, Candyman was awesome, and I cannot wait to see it again. That's why it's number 8.
As for my number 8 is another underappreciated movie, Wrath of Man by Guy Ritchie.
Good movie.
Like I said, this is probably the least Guy Ritchie-ish movie in his career, with one of Jason Bateman's best performances. And the haunting soundtrack, while yes, as Austin pointed out, does sound a bit much like Joker, it's still a pretty haunting soundtrack that fits the overall tone of the movie. The cinematography is great, the action is great, it's just a great movie. So, my number 8, Wrath of Man.
Nice. Alright. Number 7 on my worst of list. This one really hurts me. My number 7 on my worst list. This one really hurts me the most because I love the first movie, I really love the first movie. I think it's one of the best horror films I saw from the last decade. Take everything that made the first movie good and just completely shit all over it in the sequel. Number 7 is Don't Breathe 2.
Did anyone ask for that?
No. This sequel really hurts me the most because not only was it unnecessary, to make this, but because it completely destroyed almost everything that made the first movie good in the first place. Like, really. Other than the acting being good, especially from Stephen Lang, and the musical score being haunting, and the film having good cinematography, there was nothing else that was good about the film. I'll talk about the biggest reason why this is number 7 on the list. Okay, so we see years later that Stephen Lang's character, who's the blind man, who's the blind man, has raised her daughter, and oh my god, in the first movie, we already knew why he was the antagonist, because he was a monster and a rapist. Here, they try to make a psychopath. They try to make Stephen Lang's psychopath character into a hero.
Like, there's like a right way and a wrong way to make us sympathize for a villain. Like, take Joker, for example. That did an excellent job out of making you think that, yes, Arthur Fleck is a psychopath, but you get his motivation, and you actually feel sorry for him.
Yeah, and look, I get that Stephen Lang's character was trying to protect his daughter, but come on, any other character could have played the daughter of could have played the father of the daughter, and it still wouldn't make a difference. Why the fuck would you make a psychopath like Stephen Lang's character into the good guy, especially when at the end of the film he admits to his daughter that he's a monster and a psychopath and a rapist? Why would you do that? That really pissed me off to no end. There was no reason to make Stephen Lang's character from the first film into a good guy. No reason at all. Overall, this sequel was a piece of shit. It's boring, not scary, and overall was just one of the biggest sorry excuses of a sequel I've seen this year. That's why it's my number 7 worst. Fuck this movie, and fuck you, Screen Gems.
As for my number 7 worst, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard.
I'll talk about that later, because I have it higher on my list.
I'm sure Nick has a shit ton more to say about this movie, but as for me, Ryan Reynolds is good, and the action sequences are fun, but the Ryan just made Samuel L. Jackson and Selma Blair straight up unlikable and annoying. Seriously, that's quite an accomplishment. With some of the dumbest plot points I've ever seen in a movie, with like the worst use of ice cream in a motion picture since 50 Shades Freed.
I'll talk about that in a little bit, because that scene really pissed me off.
So yeah, my number 7 is Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard.
As for my number 7 best is a documentary film on my list, and it's not foul, but it is another documentary film that not a lot of people saw, and yet some people should really check this out. It's Edgar Wright's The Sparks Brothers. I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. I did feel the film was a bit too long, which was my only complaint with the documentary. I did wish they could have cut like 15 minutes of it down, but other than that, this was a great documentary that explores on why the Sparks Brothers, like the Sparks Brothers were like underrated according to according to like the people in the interview and Edgar Wright himself. We
And I
explore a lot.
believe I believe the Sparks Brothers wrote songs for another movie that I'll mention later on my list.
Yep, we'll mention that later. And another thing too, we also not only do we get to see the history of the Sparks Brothers, but we know a lot more and why like they're criminally underrated. So yeah, if you're a huge fan of the Sparks Brothers, you got to check out this documentary. It's a wonderful documentary, and it's a wonderful documentary that you do not want to miss out on. It would have been my favorite documentary film of the year if it wasn't for another documentary I saw, which we'll get to in a little bit. So, yeah, Edgar Wright's Sparks Brothers is number 7.
My number 7 is Disney's answer to Joker, Cruella. While it wasn't really that necessary, the director makes it all worth it with 2 spectacular performances from Emma Thompson and Stone in one of Emma Stone's best performances.
Yeah,
A killer-ass soundtrack, and great editing as well. Like I said, hands down the greatest Disney live-action remake out there.
Not to mention, fantastic costume design.
Uh-huh. And so yeah, my number 7, Cruella.
Number 6 on my worst of lists. I'll try my best not to step on too many toes, as I know there are some people that do like this movie, and that's totally fine. But I'm sorry, guys. Spiral from the Book of Saw really did not do it for me. Look, it's not as bad as Jigsaw or like the last Saw or like Saw 7, but Spiral was just one of the most forgettable and boring films I've seen this year. Most of the acting is good, especially from Samuel L. Jackson, and the musical score and cinematography were decent, and some of the trap scenes and the traps were pretty cool, but that's about it. I love Chris Rock. I really do love Chris Rock, but he is horribly miscast in this movie. He's supposed to be the main character, like the police detective character, and he is horribly miscast. I'm sorry, but there was not one moment where I bought him as like the where I bought him as like the main character and the police detective.
And I've heard he's made a better dramatic role in a movie, Top 5, I believe it's called.
Great movie. Great movie. You know what? I forgot to mention that. That was also on my best films of 2014 list. I don't know why I didn't mention that film. Another thing too, the tone is also very inconsistent. Like, at one point it wants to be like a slasher film, like another typical Saw film with the traps setup, and then all of a sudden it wants to be like a police, like a crime mystery film. Like what tone are you trying to go for, movie? You can't just be like, I mean, if you're gonna be both, at least have it make some sense.
Oh yeah, and Leah's got the copycat's voice.
Oh god, the copycat voice. Hello there, sir. I want to play a game. I want to play a game, and you only have a few seconds left to live. No disrespect to the voice actor, but really, that's the best you could do?
And you want to know what would be a much scarier voice for the copycats? Hey Sim, you want to make waffles with me and Donkey?
I made that up.
Nice. Yeah, that would have been much better than what we just got. Oh,
yeah,
and
really.
oh boy. And also, funny you mentioned the ending, Soren, to Snake Eyes, because this movie also pulls the same thing. This movie also pulls the same bullshit ending. Like towards the end of the film, we see Chris Rock about to get tortured, and then we see the villain. We see the guy that plays the villain. By the way, he was terrible. He was a terrible. He gave. I don't know what the actor's name was that played the villain. I mean, I mean, it was also part of the twist as well. But spoilers. But I don't give a shit. This is the worst of lists, not best of. And he walks away. He walks away while Chris Rock is being tortured. And then as something starts to get interesting, it cuts to black. The movie's over. When that ending happened, I literally yelled, "What? That's it?" Matt Minkala was his name. Thank you, Nicholas Lee. Thank you. Yeah, he was terrible. He was terrible. Look, I do think he's a talented actor, but he gave out such a terrible performance. I don't know if it was the script or the way he acted in this movie, but that was just, ugh. Yeah, overall, Spiral may be better than like the last two Saw films, Saw 7 and Jigsaw, but it's not saying much though. It's still another bad installment to the Saw franchise, and it was just a really bad. Okay, well, it was just overall just a generic bad movie. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's also really cliched as well, like especially with the police cops, especially with the police crime story. We've seen that in other films before. Do something different. Yeah, overall, Spiral is number 6. I'm sorry to those that like this movie, but I just was not a fan of this one. Yeah, Spiral from the Book of Saw, or Saw, whatever the hell the number is my number 6 worst.
As for my number 6, Peter Rabbit 2. Nick just mentioned it earlier. Now, unlike Nick, I was one that thought the first Peter Rabbit was okay, but this sequel just completely derails it. I mean, the voice acting is okay, the effects are okay, but the humor is completely lacking, and it suffers from one of the dumbest scripts I've ever experienced all year. So yeah, my number 6, Peter Rabbit 2.
Yeah, it was just not a good movie. Excuse me a second. Okay. Alright, so number 6 is an A24 film on the list. Is an A24 film on the list, and number 6 is Zola. I really love this movie. Zola was based on the it's pretty weird that like a movie based on a Twitter post was somehow managed to be one of the best movies I've seen this year so far. But I mean, I love A24. So usually they put some weird stuff in most of their movies, and yet they know how to make it work most of the time. For those who don't know what Zola is, it basically follows Zola, a Detroit waitress who is seduced into a weekend of stripping in Florida for some quick cash, but the trip becomes a sleepless 48-hour odyssey involving a near-first friend, her pimp, and her idiot boyfriend. Yeah. Now the story, I really dug the story throughout the whole film. It did have me invested. Because of how interesting and engaging it was. The script was fantastic since it has really sharp dialogue and great character development. It's very well directed. The acting was terrific. Everybody gave out a great performance. Taylor Page was fantastic as Zola, and Riley Keough was fantastic in this movie as well. There is some great humor in it. There's some nice touches, some good humor in it. The soundtrack was very good. The cinematography was fantastic. It's very well edited, and it's very well paced for a slow burn paced film. My only problem with the film is that the ending was a bit underwhelming. I did wish they could have done more with this ending, but that's really it. Everything else I really loved, and Zola was definitely a wonderful experience from start to finish. It was funny, it was entertaining, it was thought provoking, and it was just all around a riveting experience. I love the ghost story as well, Nick. And
yeah,
that's why Zola is number 6 on my best films of the summer list.
As for my number 6 best, it's safe to say that Nicolas Cage is going through a renaissance this year, and that is Pig.
Nice. I'll mention that later because it's higher on my list.
Now, for a child like Pig, you probably don't know what to expect, but trust me, you're in for an emotional treat. Nick Cage plays this pig wrangler, and when his pig gets stolen, he is forced to interact with society in the first time in years, and thus he for the first time he remembers all the good times he had when all those years ago. So yeah, don't go into this movie expecting like some thriller movie, but do expect a emotional powerhouse with Nick's best performance since leaving Las Vegas, some great music, and a great ending, an emotional ending. So
that the last 5 minutes of the film hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
I was not expecting something like that.
My number 6 is Nick Cage's Pig.
All right, now we're getting on to the top 5, folks. The worst of the worst and the best of the summer. My number 5 worst. Oh boy, my number 5 worst. It's a good thing we mentioned M. Night Shyamalan earlier because number 5 is one of his worst movies. M. Night Shyamalan Ding Don's Old. This movie was bad when I first reviewed it. I originally gave it a 3 out of 10, but now it just got even worse the more I thought about it. It's a 2 out of 10. It's just, this movie was terrible. This movie was terrible from start to finish. It had no idea what it wanted to be, and as a result, it just became just a clusterfuck of a mess. The only redeeming things in the film is that there are some good performances by Gail Garcia Bernal, Thomas McKenzie, Alex Wolff, and Beth Devitz. And the cinematography was terrific since it's beautifully shot, and I do love James Newton Howard's musical score. But the rest of the movie, absolutely terrible. The rest of the acting is terrible, especially with the kid actors. Good God, they really annoyed the shit out of me in this film. I don't like I don't like trashing on kid actors because I know they're trying their best, but God, they were annoying in this movie. The story could have been interesting, but instead what we have here is an inconsistent mess. The script was terrible, since it has some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in a film this entire year so far. It's poorly directed by M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan, you're not the next Spielberg, nor are you the next Alfred Hitchcock. There's only one Steven Spielberg and one Alfred Hitchcock, and that's Steven Spielberg and Alfred Hitchcock themselves. Yeah, he makes a cameo in this movie, except his cameo feels shoehorned in. I'm talking about M. Night Shyamalan, in case you guys are wondering. I agree with you, Nicholas Lee. It's not as bad as The Last Airbender. It's not as bad as The Happening. nor is it as bad as After Earth. But this is still one of his worst movies. But the thing that really made this into one of his worst movies was the plot twist and the ending. Now, I knew I was expecting a plot twist, especially since it's an M. Night Shyamalan film. But the way he threw that twist... I already explained how dumb this is, so I'll make this quick. So basically, this whole thing on the beach where people are aging rapidly is nothing for this experiment for these like scientists and doctors to have guests try out this like medicine that will make them age rapidly for one day. Okay. Like I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I don't buy that bullshit at all. First of all, if this was meant to be an experiment, as I explained before, then why earlier did we see a woman giving birth to a baby only for it to die minutes later, and why did we see a guy suffering through a tumor?
Makes no sense.
It makes no fucking sense. M. Night Shyamalan, you may be a more talented filmmaker than some of the worst filmmakers out there, but dude, you gotta stop with these plot twists. You gotta stop. Unless you come up with something original and unique with the plot twist. Here though, this plot twist throws any logic that it has out the fucking door. And like I said before, I know it was based on the graphic novel called Sandcastles, which I did some research after seeing the film. The graphic novel, from what I heard, is more ambiguous than the movie. In the movie, they try to M. Night tries to throw in some answers, especially with its plot twist, which doesn't work when it raises more questions than just answers. Yeah, Old is one of M. Night Shyamalan's worst movies, in my opinion. It's inconsistent as hell, it's convoluted, it's idiotic, and it's just flat out a laughably bad experience. Okay, not laughably bad experience, but I was completely baffled at how bad this one was. Really baffled. And featuring some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in a motion picture this entire year so far. So yeah, M. Night Shyamalan Ding Don's Old is my number 5 worst film of the summer. Fuck this movie. And Nick, if you're wondering, no, I did not see the first Meet the Blacks movie, and I refuse to see that one nor its sequel.
You know, one thing I just realized about my number 5 worst, the Loud House movie. If their trip to Scotland and their heritage are such a big deal, then why the hell weren't they even mentioned in season 5, which is supposed to take place afterward this movie? And you know, the timeline is completely fucked. When I deemed this piece of shit non-canon in my cartooniverse, when I did that Lori and Bobby fan fiction.
Wow, that's fucked up for them.
Yeah, really. So Nickelodeon, get your head out of the gear. Just get your head out of the gear. My number 5, the fucking Loud House movie.
Yeah, it's just after it's. Okay. I'm glad I dodged the bullet with that film, because there was no way I was gonna sit through. I'm not a fan of the cartoon, and there was no way I was gonna sit through this film. And Nickelodeon, I'm gonna say this one more time. Adam Sandler for Punch Drunk Love, take it away. Hold on. There we go. Adam Sandler from Punch Drunk Love, take it away.
Yeah, and seriously, especially since you canceled the teenage robot and making fiends after low episodes. Yet you continue to run SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, and the Loud House to the ground.
Fairly Odd Parents went off the air in 2017. Thank
Well,
God.
yeah. The only reason why it went out the air is because Butch Harmon left Nickelodeon to pretty much go insane. But that's another can of worms. So yeah, my number 5.
Yeah, that's. We'll discuss that another time.
So yeah, my number 5, Loud House movie. I'm done.
Yeah, really. All right, my number 5 best. You want to talk about the meaning of life? Well, have we got a movie for you? Number 5, 9 Lives.
9 days.
Oh. Fuck! Why did I confuse 9 days with 9 lives?
By the way, guys, when are you gonna put it online so that I can finally watch it?
Oh my god. I'm a cuckoo. I'm a cuckoo head sometimes. But that's besides the point. 9 Days was absolutely wonderful. From Winston Duke delivering one of the best performances I've seen this year. To the rest of the acting being terrific, especially with Zazie Beetz. Zazie Beetz delivering one of the best breakthrough performances of the year. The story was fantastic. The script was fantastic. The directing was phenomenal. The soundtrack was brilliant. The cinematography is beautiful. The way they captured a lot of the scenery in the film was absolutely fantastic. The editing was fantastic. It's very well paced, especially for a slow burn movie. And the way it ended was absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the best endings I've seen put to film this entire year. Oh yeah, and the way they talked about the meaning of life, the way they handled the themes of like the meaning of life, that was absolutely spectacular. Oh, and to answer your question, Nick Lee, I didn't see 9 Lives, nor will I ever see it. So yeah, 9 Days is beautiful, mesmerizing, and powerful and exhilarating. And overall, it was just one of the best movies I've seen this year so far. 9 Days, without a doubt, absolutely kicks off the top 5 as my number 5 best film of the summer.
My number 5 is a musical called In the Heights. Like I said previously, great cast, great direction, great musical sequences, just great everything. It's pretty sad to see it bomb at the box office.
Yeah, so, really.
My number 5 is In the Heights.
Oh boy, now for the number 4 worst. When will this franchise die? When will this fucking franchise die? They kept saying it was the last film, yet because it made a lot of money, we're getting another movie. Number 4 is The Forever Purge. Look, this isn't as bad as the first. This isn't as bad as the original Purge, the prequel, the first Purge, or what I consider to be the worst of the Purge movies. The Purge: A Legend here. But make no mistake, the Forever Purge was one of the most idiotic and was one of the most idiotic films I've seen this entire year. Some of the acting is fine. The cinematography was very good. And there was one cool action scene that was all done in one take. That was pretty clever. But other than that, this movie's a complete train wreck from start to finish. The story was shit. The script was shit. It's poorly directed. The rest of the acting is terrible. The actor that played the Confederate villain, good God, I don't think I've ever been this pissed off at a villain in quite some time. Or maybe in a while. Yeah, in a while. And they went way too far with this concept, especially when it's reminding me of some toxic toxic political things that happened in real life last year. When it reminded me of that. They went way too far with this concept. It's poorly edited, the action sequences were terrible, and the ending, another sequel bait ending. Yeah. Overall, just stop! Stop with these Purge movies, please! Yeah, overall, the Forever Purge may not be as bad as the Purge election year, the original Purge and the prequel, the first Purge, but it's still a piece of shit. That's why the Forever Purge is number 4 on my worst films of the summer list.
As for my number 4, Nick just mentioned it earlier. M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong Dum Deck. Old. But, like I said, a really good premise, but lazy ass execution. With terrible dialogue, a twist ending that makes no sense, and it's like it's like M. Night Shyamalan tries to go over the top without and not make any sense. I mean, it's not as bad as The Village or The Last Airbender, but still pretty bad. So yeah, my number 4 is Old.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, good. My connection was wearing out a little bit. Anyway, my number 4 best. Soren mentioned this one, and it's definitely number 4 on the list. Nicolas Cage's best performance since leaving Las Vegas. Number 4, Pig. This movie was absolutely terrific. From start to finish, I was emotionally invested with everything that was going on in the film. Not only does Nicolas Cage deliver his best performance since leaving Las Vegas, but the story had me emotionally invested. It's very well written, very well directed, and yes, it's a slow burn paced film, but it needed to be that way to fit the tone, realism, and atmosphere it was trying to go for. And to me, it worked. And without spoiling what happens, the last 5 minutes of the film hit me like no other film did this year so far. Just when you thought it was gonna be that story, it just throws a complete 180, which leaves you floored, and in a good way. I don't want to spoil what happens, but for those who saw it, you probably know what happened. You probably know what I'm talking about. So yeah, Pig overall was mesmerizing, powerful, and just mesmerizing, powerful, and riveting, and that's why it is easily my number 4 best film of the summer.
As for my number 4 best, it's another musical, Annette. I just mentioned it earlier, but great acting, great music, great story, great emotional drama, just great everything. Just if you haven't seen it on Amazon Prime, what are you doing? So number 4 is Annette.
Oh boy, now we're getting to the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst that I've seen this summer. And the top 3 films on my worst films of the summer list are all sequels. They're all sequels, and they're all some of the worst I've seen the entire summer. They make the Forever Purge, Don't Breathe 2, Escape Room Tournament of Champions, and Fast 9 to Fast Saga all look like masterpieces in comparison. Number 3 is my most disappointing film of the summer. It's my most disappointing film of the summer, and one of the most disappointing films I've seen this entire year. Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Oh my god. This movie was so bad. It was really, 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 really bad. The only redeeming things that I found with the film was that Don Cheadle was the only actor that Don Cheadle was the only actor that actually gave out a good performance. The voice acting is decent, especially with Zendaya voicing Lola Bunny. She did a good job. The rest of the voice acting is good too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a few of the animators were uncredited. And why wouldn't they bring Cap Susie anyway when she was announced first?
Yeah, really? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Another thing that ticks me off is that they're like, oh, Pepe Le Pew's a rapist, we'll remove him, but we'll keep the guys from the Clockwork Orange.
Don't ever get me started on that crap.
This is crap!
Yeah, really. That's my exact reaction to a certain #1 movie we'll get to later. Just why? Why does this sequel exist?
Yeah, really.
I'd rather watch Back in Action.
Yeah,
That's
same
an
here.
underrated movie.
Very underrated. And it was good seeing 2D it was good seeing the 2D animation back. I did like the 2D animation in Space Jam: New Legacy. And I will say this, I did laugh 3 times throughout. Like, I did laugh at 15% of the jokes. Especially when one was involving on Sylvester saying, look, guys, Michael Jordan's back, only for it to be Michael B. Jordan. That was actually pretty funny.
I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was disappointing.
I
Well,
found that to be a complete slap in the face to Space Jam fans.
Yeah.
okay, you know what? Yeah, that was a complete slap in the face. Sorry.
Yeah.
Alright. But I will admit, the Rick and Morty cameo did make me laugh, and that was the only thing that was one of the 2 things that did legitimately make me laugh. That was it.
That reminds me of an episode of Gotham Girls called Baby Boom, where one of the statues happens to be Lobo.
Oh yeah. I mean, throughout most of the film, it's bad. It's bad. It's not awful, just bad. But when we get to the game, oh my god. This was nothing more. Not only was the CGI effects on the Looney Tunes characters absolutely horrendous, but, and that's fine if you like the movie, Leah. That's totally fine. We're not here to bash. We're not here to bash. As I stated before, these are just our personal opinions. But anyway, as I was saying, not only was the CGI effects on the Looney Tunes characters absolutely awful since they looked like something out of a PS4 game, but the amount of product placement for other Warner Brothers properties was just way too much, especially when some of them were like inappropriate for kids, since they're not even gonna get it. Like, what kid in this new generation is gonna know who Pennywise the Clown from It is, nor the guys from A Clockwork Orange?
Then again, the Shrek movies did make some references to pre-adult material like The Matrix and the Lord of the Rings. But
it was subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that reference of the Matrix is actually a reference to Charlie Angels, which also had Cameron Diaz.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Charlie's Angels, not the recent one, the first one from the
2000?
first 2000. That's actually one of my big guilty pleasures. I know it's stupid. I know it's a mess, but I did enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah.
But thank you, Nick Lee. Remember how I mentioned on the last podcast that Chuck Jones didn't like how Porky was portrayed in the first Space Jam movie?
And Joe Lasky himself didn't like Space Jam anyway.
Right. I can't imagine how both of them would feel if they saw the sequel in this one scene that's involving Porky rapping.
Well, Porky did rap in Robot Chicken, which is that's all, bitches.
Except that was a parody.
Yeah.
This is an actual movie, and it's just absolutely atrocious. And
Looney Tunes referenced the Matrix before, back in 2001, called the Matrix.
right.
You know, eat the red, and you'll see the world the way it really is. Eat the blue, and you'll see something else. Maybe New Jersey.
Did you know that?
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry about that ad on my phone.
Oh, it's all right. But yeah. Overall, this was horrible. This was absolutely horrible. It would have been number 1 on my worst films of the summer list if there were 2 more. If I hadn't seen 2 more films that were much worse. And I'm telling you, we'll get to them when we get to it. But Owen, LeBron James. Not only was he terrible in the movie, but dude. The reason why people don't like this movie was because of the fact that it was more of a product placement for Warner Brothers.
Or in short, an advertisement for HBO Max.
For HBO Max. I'm sorry. For Warner Brothers streaming service HBO Max. Do not think that the people who dislike this movie are racist. Please stop that. That's not the reason.
Correct. For example, I don't like it when people say, if you don't like this, you're ableist, for example. If you don't like Rayman, you're ableist. I like Rayman, and I do.
I love Rain Man, but I can understand why some people wouldn't. But
yeah, and it's way more tasteful than music.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, really. But to finish on my own to finish on my thoughts on the film, Space Jam: A New Legacy sucked balls.
Basketballs.
God damn it! Thank you. Space Jam: A New Legacy sucked basketballs. This movie was terrible, and the worst part is it didn't need to be this terrible. Yeah.
In fact, the earlier draft was even better with Mel Brooks as the villain Berserko.
I have no idea why they threw that out all of a sudden.
Bob Camp did the design for Berserko. Of Ren and Stimpy fame.
Interesting. Anyway, we gotta wrap this up because we gotta wrap up my thoughts on Space Jam: A New Legacy because I gotta go soon. So to sum it all up, Space Jam: A New Legacy sucked basketballs, sucked big balls basketballs. This movie sucked. It's horrendous. It's just one of the worst movies I've seen this summer. Yeah, number 3 on the list.
My number 3 worst is The Woman in the Window. I mean, way to take Rear Window and just take away everything that made that movie a classic. I mean, Amy Adams is decent, but the directing is all over the place. The screenplay is all over the place. The rest of the acting is all over the place. It's just... For more information, just go watch my video on it on my channel. Number 3, Woman in the Window.
Okay, alright, so... Alright, number 3 on the... Alright, so now we're on to the best of the best. Number 3, best, Soren mentioned it, and it's one of the best musicals I've ever seen. In the Heights. I absolutely love this movie. Not only was the acting absolutely terrific, especially from the main actor and the actress that played the supporting actress that played Abiola. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm sorry if it isn't. Not only was the acting terrific, but the musical numbers were fascinating, and the way they choreographed the musical numbers was fantastic. The story was fantastic. It's very well written, very well directed. The cinematography is beautiful. The soundtrack is wonderful. It's very well edited, very well paced, and overall, I absolutely love this movie. And it's...
We can't go. It's too late.
Hold on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they close at 8. It takes an hour and a half to get out there.
Sorry, guys. I was supposed to go to Wahlburgers, but I guess since we're discussing the worst films of the summer, I can't. Oh well. But anyway, In the Heights was fantastic, and I absolutely love this movie, and I cannot wait to see it again. Yeah, In the Heights is definitely number 3 on my best films of the summer list.
My number 3 best is A Quiet Place Part 2. Way to have lightning strike twice. John Krasinski, his direction is just as fun as the last movie. The acting is just as great as the last movie. The editing and sound mixing are just as great as the last movie. It's just as fantastic as the last movie. Just go see this movie. Number 3, Quiet Place 2.
Alright, now we're on to the worst of the worst. For real this time. Number 2 is... Soren is going to mention this soon. It's the worst animated film I've seen this year. Number 2... The Boss Baby Family Business. Oh my god. Soren and I already ranted on what was wrong with this movie, so we're gonna make this brief. I'm gonna make this brief. To be fair, the animation is a bit of an improvement over the first film, and Ariana Greenblatt was the only voice actress that gave out a decent vocal performance, but that was it. The story was terrible. The rest of the voice acting is terrible, and Nicholas Lee said this: the Boss Baby Family bitchness.
Boss Baby Family bullshit.
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. The story's terrible. It's poorly written, poorly directed. The rest of the voice acting is terrible. The soundtrack sucks. The editing sucks. All the jokes fall very flat on their faces, and the ending. Yeah, overall, fuck this movie. Fuck this movie. Fuck this. Sorry excuse to call this a sequel. It could burn in hell. This... Like I said, it would have been my number 1 worst film of the summer if it wasn't for another film that I saw last month that ended up being one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So yeah, Boss Baby number 2.
My number 2, Nick just talked about it in a lot. Space Jam 2, a new HBO Max commercial. The least I can say about it is that this movie feels less like a Space Jam sequel and more like a commercial for Warner Brothers and HBO Max. I mean, I get that the first Space Jam is based off commercials with Michael B. Jordan and Nike, but at least it felt like a actual movie with a beginning, middle, and end. This movie just steals the plot from Space Jam and fills up the runtime with slapping the faces to fadings of the original, constant product placement / references, and just cringy sequences. like the Michael B. Jordan's clip and the Porky rapping scene. Ugh.
Looney Tunes had a better Matrix parody 20 years ago than that film.
Yeah,
really.
really. So yeah, number 2, Space Jam 2.
Fuck that movie. Alright, so we're on to the number 2 best, and I had a hard time figuring out what was going to be number 2 and what was going to be number 1. And to answer your question, Eddie, from like earlier, no, it's not worse than Caillou, but still.
Yeah, because at least Space Jam 2 didn't condone temper tantrums.
Yeah, really. But we're not. Well, but that's besides the point. But anyway, I had a hard time figuring out what was going to be figuring out which of these films were going to be number 2 and number 1, because I absolutely love both of these movies. But after some close thinking, after some careful thinking, and after thinking about the other film that I saw from like 2 months ago, I knew this had to be number 1. So the number 2 film on the list is my favorite documentary film of the year, Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. This documentary was absolutely amazing, and so far the best documentary film I've seen this year. Never since Won't You Be My Neighbor have I been absolutely riveted by a documentary in quite some time. Since Won't You Be My Neighbor, for those who don't know what Summer of Soul is, well, it's a documentary film about the that took place in Harlem, New York in 1969. I'm sorry, just give me a second. Over the course of the 6 weeks during the summer of 1969, thousands of people attend the Harlem Cultural Festival to celebrate Black history, culture, music, and fashion. So this was a big point. This was considered a revolutionary according to like everybody, because of it celebrating the culture. But at the time they filmed this, it was deemed obscure by network executives, which is really a dick move on their part. But the way they restored the footage of the concert was absolutely fascinating. And it really feels like you're right there. You're right there watching the whole concert. The interviews were fascinating to watch. It's very well directed, very well shot, and the story of the documentary also had me emotionally invested throughout. So I thought long and hard twice on what would be number 1. But so this film is really an honorary number 1 for me. But I had to be honest and go with the next film, which I think Soren and I might have the same number 1, but we'll get to that as soon as we finish. As soon as he's finished his number 2 best. And after he and I reveal our number 1 worst. So yeah, Summer of Soul, number 2 best.
As for my number 2 best, I only have one. I only have one word to share here.
Any questions?
So yeah, my number 2 is the Suicide Squad.
Nice.
Talk about a scene. I think this might be the Ouija 2 of superhero sequels, in that it is a vast improvement over that hella flawed first movie, with some spectacular action sequences, great humor, great characters, great soundtrack, great everything. James Gunn has, I wouldn't say outdone himself, but he's made a hella spectacular DC movie. So yeah, my number 2 is the Suicide Squad.
Alright. The worst film I've seen this summer, without a doubt. Should be pretty obvious. Soren explained it, and it's my number 1 worst film of the summer. I didn't care for the first movie, but at least it had some charm to it. This though didn't. My number one worst film of the summer is Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. This movie was an absolute mess. From start to finish, I was baffled and infuriated by what I've just seen. By what I've just seen. I mean, the only redeeming thing that I found in the film was that Morgan Freeman and Antonio Banderas were the only actors that gave out decent performances. That's it. Everything else is terrible. The story is shit. The script is horrendous, since it's filled with some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in the film this entire year. And terrible character development. It's poorly directed. The action sucks. The musical score is terrible. The cinematography is also terrible too, since it relies too much on shaky cam throughout, to the point where you can't even tell what the hell's going on, especially in the action sequences. And the way it was edited too, dear lord. Ugh. Dear lord, it's so poorly edited. Oh my god. And another thing too, on why this is the worst film of the year, the acting and the subplot involving ice cream. I mean, Ryan Reynolds tries his best, but his talent is horribly wasted on such a garbage script. While Samuel L. Jackson and oh god, what was that other actress's name? I forgot.
Salma Hayek.
Salma Hayek.
Thank you. Salma Hayek. They were extremely annoying. They were extremely annoying in this movie. Just make Ryan Reynolds like Samuel Jackson and Salma Hayek's characters into one-dimensional bumbling idiots that you do not give a shit about. Oh yeah, and the joke involving gelato ice cream and why Ryan Reynolds is afraid of it because of it reminding him of the incident at a carnival where his mother was killed. That left a huge bad taste in my mouth. That was the reason why I considered it as the worst film of the summer, because that is absolutely inexcusable and a waste of time. I hated this movie. I hated this movie. It is without a doubt one of the worst movies I've seen this year. And Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, without a doubt, easily deserves my number one spot as the worst film I've seen this summer. Fuck this movie.
Now, before I go over my number one, I just want to say something. It's safe to say that animated movies aren't as good as they used to be. I mean, for the past couple decades, they've turned into these low-effort, celebrity-filled, pop culture referencing pieces of garbage. And I'm sure there are like a ton of great movies out there, but this is like the majority of them, and it all led up to this piece of shit. Now, for the longest time, I've deemed that the Sausage Party was the worst animated movie I've seen in my life. Sorry, Nick. But after seeing this movie might have topped it. For the longest time, the worst animated movie I've ever seen was Sausage Party, but 2 months ago, it's been dethroned by Boss Baby 2 family bullshit. I mean, I was already not looking forward to this movie after I saw the trailer, but after seeing it, how can you imagine a movie this bad? I mean, from the opening scene with having the main character go through the exact same story arc as the first movie, and having Alec Baldwin as an adult, it's just Ugh. The jokes are unfunny. They're obnoxious. The editing is all over the place. The messages are hammered in. The animation is garbage. The voice acting's garbage. There's like nothing redeemable here. And there's this one scene that I just can't get out of my head. The scene where the two main characters grow younger, get naked, and they pinch each other's nipples. Oh. I got this clip here, and which I think perfectly describes my my feelings towards it. If I could just find it. And sorry about the silence, guys. I'm just trying to find this clip, which can perfectly describe my feelings towards it. By the way, Nick, why don't you say something while I look for this clip?
Well, I was supposed to go to Wahlburgers, but due to how long the podcast is, I couldn't.
Yeah, sorry you couldn't go there.
That's fine.
Oh, I got it. I got this clip that perfectly describes my feelings towards it. So yeah, that's my reaction to that scene. I mean, what were they thinking?
Like, really? Did they become addicted to child pornography because of this? Like, seriously?
So yeah.
And this is not a joke!
And yeah, Boss Baby 2 is hands down the worst animated movie I've ever seen in my life. It's worse than Food Fight. It's worse than the Emoji Movie. It's worse than Norm of the North. Yeah, I'm going there. I can never see myself watching this movie again. And to be honest, I almost want to buy a Blu-ray of this thing just so that I can destroy it as brutally as possible on camera. That's to vent my anger. So yeah, Boss Baby 2, one of the worst movies of all time, and easily the worst movie of the summer. I can't wait to tear this an even bigger asshole when I go over the worst movies of the year later this year.
Same. On the bright side, you and I have the same number one best.
Yep.
The number one, Soren and I's number one favorite movie we saw this summer. This was originally my number 2, but then the more I thought about this movie, the more it had to be number 1. It's the movie that really, no other film this summer riveted me and moved me this much the way this one did. Number one, the best movie that Soren and I both saw this summer, is David Lowery's The Green Knight.
Yep. When I saw the trailer for this movie, I went into it expecting a high fantasy action film with the main character going after his destiny. But what I got is this thought-provoking drama about Dave Patel's character and his dilemmas on whether to fulfill his destiny or not, whether or not it could result in his death. The costuming is great, the production design is great, the music is great. It's just a freaking masterpiece. And it's my second favorite movie of the year behind Justice League. So yeah, nice. My number 1 is The Green Knight.
My number 1 is also The Green Knight, and let me explain why this is number 1. this is the film that I thought most about this summer, and it hasn't left my mind ever since. And this film really was a masterpiece that I really loved from start to finish. Talking about the themes of like morality and courage and talking about the themes of morality and courage, it was just so well handled here. I just want to speed this up because I really do have to get going soon. The story was fantastic. It's very well directed by David Lowery, and the script he wrote was fantastic. It's very well acted. Dev Patel was fantastic in this movie. This might be my favorite performance he's given on his career so far. Ralph Neeson was fantastic as the Green Knight as well, and the makeup they used on him was absolutely phenomenal. The visual, it has fantastic visuals. All the other acting is fantastic too, including Alicia Vikander and Joel Edgerton. The musical score was fantastic. The cinematography is beautiful. It's very well edited. It's very well paced. Yes, it is a slow burn paced film, but it needed to be, which I could see some people not liking this movie, and that's fine. But it needed to be that way to fit the tone and atmosphere it was trying to go for, and it works well for me here. If they made a fast food cinematic universe, Eddie, it would be dreadful.
Yeah.
And the production values and costume design were terrific, and the ending to the film is one of the best endings I've ever seen this entire year. It riveted me from start to finish, and overall, I just cannot wait to see this again, and that's why The Green Knight is easily Soren and I's #1 film of summer. Well done, David Lowery. So, and that concludes today's podcast on the FilmBrony podcast. This was a very long podcast, I know, but we had a lot of stuff to go over. I want to thank Soren and Christian for joining me on this podcast. I want to thank you guys for watching this podcast. And also, be sure to subscribe to Soren and Christian on their YouTube channels. The links are in the description below. Give them the love they absolutely deserve, and I'll make sure to put the video involving Shay Phyllis's review of Shrek. And until we meet again for episode 21 in October, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. And I'm really excited that my birthday's tomorrow, and I'm really hoping that that's a good one. So yeah.
Yeah, happy early one.
Thanks,
Bye.
Soren. See you soon, guys. Have a great rest of the night. Bye-bye.
Bye.